There's no one else who loves me like you used to. Sometimes we're not ourselves. There's no one I can turn to. And I know all the feelings that we shared are in the past. And I know your relationships are never meant to last. And I'll take some time, but I'll be alright. We're moving on. We're moving on. I know times are tough, but I've had enough. Moving on. We're moving on. Moving on.
Hallo. Môre, ekskuus, dames en here, ek wil net vra as ek 'n oomblik kan kry, die van julle wat stemgeregtig is moet asseblief nog steeds vir ons aanteken voor, want ons moet net bevestig dat ons 'n quorum het vanoggend. Goed, baie dankie.
Môre aan almal. Ek hoor julle nog net brom, ek hoor julle nog nie praat nie. Môre almal. Sy, nou het ons julle aandag. Ek het gehoor ek moet vanoggend vra of daar enige iemand is wat iets het om te verklaar. Iets wat gisteraand gebeur het, dalk in die swembad of dalk op ander plekke, ek is nie doodseker nie. Ek dink is net belangrik dat ons net weet wie het wat, foto's of iets van iemand anderster, dat 'n ou nou nie namens 'n ander ou kom praat vanoggend nie. Ek wil graag vir Dominee Stefan Joubert, ek dink hy het enige bekendstelling nodig nie, vir hom dan vra om vir ons die kongres vandag op die gepaste wyse te open. Dankie Dominee.
It's a great privilege for me to be here this morning, and I'll try to be as bilingual as possible to accommodate all our guests. It was the leader of the Empire of Cordoba, Abd al-Rahman III, who reigned for 50 years in the 10th century. He was the most powerful ruler on the planet for close to 50 years. He was revered by his followers, respected by his friends, and feared by his enemies. He was the richest man on earth. And close to his death, when he was asked about happiness, he could only recall 14 days during his entire lifetime that he could define as being happy. 14 dae van geluk. Happiness is a moving target. Dit is die Amerikaanse navorser Dan Gilbert. Dan Gilbert has written quite a number of books on happiness, and he says it's an elusive concept. Most people do not have an idea what makes them happy. And the things that people place their happiness on, a secure future, getting money, winning the lottery, that happiness will last for 3 months and then it will be gone. Happiness is always on the move. So what makes a man happy? That's the question. What makes a person happy? Wat maak jou gelukkig? Ek bly ons vra, want die skrywer van Prediker in die Bybel worstel hiermee. The author of the book of Ecclesiastes in the Bible grapples with the question of happiness. And his initial reaction is that everything is wind. It's like chasing the wind. Everything is futile. Life is meaningless. And this is in the Bible of all places. He doesn't experience happiness. And then he says that he explored a number of routes to find happiness. And I'm going to read a few van die routes wat die Prediker aangedurf het vir geluk. Ek begin in Prediker 1 vers 16. I said to myself, look, I am wiser than any of the kings who ruled in Jerusalem before me. I have greater wisdom and knowledge than any of them. So I set out to learn everything from wisdom to madness and folly. But I learned firsthand that pursuing all of this is like chasing the wind. The greater my wisdom, the greater my grief. To increase knowledge only increases sorrow. So the first route that he embarked on was seeking wisdom. It had a false ending, dit het vals geëindig. Hy was die wysste, die slimste, die mees berekenste, and all he delivered in the end was sorrow. Al wat gebeur het, hy het geweet wat 'n moeilikheid wag. Soos lyk vir my meeste mense in Suid-Afrika, hulle weet meer van moeilikheid. Most people have honorary doctorates in trouble spotting. I've noticed that there are more sin spotters and trouble spotters than God spotters in South Africa at present, even though we say we're a religious community. That's another story. But the author tried this, he tried wisdom, false ending. So he tried another route, the second route in pursuit of happiness. I said to myself, that's Ecclesiastes 2 verse 1, come on, let's try pleasure. So he moved from wisdom to pleasure. Hy word toe die gees van die fees, die partytjie dier, die ou wat die grappe van die jaar kan vertel, Leon Schuster 'n go gee. And in the end, I found this too was meaningless. So I said, laughter is silly. want as jy lag moet jy maar weer ophou. Daar's altyd 'n ou wat 'n beter goorder grap as jy ken. En toe moes hy maar ophou. Then he tried the third route. After much thought, I decided to cheer myself with wine. Toe vat hy alkohol. Toe sê hy, drank, hier kom ek, vang my. En nou ons weet wat gebeur met sulke mense. So, hy said, and I was still seeking wisdom. Nou, ek het al baie ouens gesien wat baie wys is, as hulle baie alkohol in het, maar nie Bybelse wysheid nie. So, he went from wisdom to pleasure to alcohol. And once again, it was a false ending. And then he tried a fourth route in Ecclesiastes chapter 2. Then he went for money, the basic thing all people go after. He says, I tried to find meaning by building huge homes for myself, planting beautiful vineyards. I made gardens and parks. I bought slaves, men and women. I also owned large herds and flocks, more than any king who had lived in Jerusalem. I collected great sums of silver and gold, the treasures of many kings and provinces. As hierdie ou gaan van erg na erger, dit klink soos 'n seepie wat in Pretoria afspeel. I had everything a man could desire. I hired wonderful singers, men and women, and I had many beautiful concubines. Sure. Hy kon net sowel, ek weet nie wat noem mens die seepies wat nou afspeel, daarin gespeel het. Hy het geld gehad, hy het mag gehad, and here is his life philosophy. Anything I wanted, I would take. I denied myself no pleasure. Werk hard, speel hard. Ek verdien dit. And then in the end, it was another false ending. He says, but as I looked at everything I had worked so hard to accomplish, it was all meaningless. Like chasing the wind. Nou daar's een ding wat ek van die wind agtergekom het, jy kan dit jaag en jy kan inderdaad wind vang, kyk daar het ek hom, daar het ek dit, ek weet nie, sy of hy of dit. Hier's wind, jy kan dit ook probeer, dit werk elke keer, maar as jou hand oopmaak, is dit weg. Jy kan wind vang, but it's meaningless. So he ended up, all the routes in life that he pursued, ended up in meaninglessness. And this is the problem, that most people do not know what makes them happy. And the things that you think should make you happy, control of the future, knowing what the future will hold, will not make you happy. Dan Gilbert finds that even if we can remove all obstacles that make us unhappy, we will find new things that make us unhappy. We lived in Germany for 15 months. I worked at the university there. And at one stage, I told the Germans, you are the most unhappy people I've ever seen. You have everything and you're still unhappy. Because the moment you solve potholes, there will be something else. And when you solve Eskom, there will be something else. So happiness is like chaos. No wonder the Christian author C.S. Lewis said, most people know just about enough of God to be unhappy, but not happy. Not even their faith makes them happy. As I've said, many believers that I know more about what's wrong with the world and wrong with others than what's right with God. So, the author finally finds a different route. All is not in vain. Dan ontdek die prediker 'n nuwe pad. En hy beskryf dit 5 keer. En ek gaan net so 3 of 4 van die tekste lees. Hy ontdek 'n stil pad. He finds happiness. No, God finds him on the route and the road less traveled. And it starts off in Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 23. So I decided there is nothing better than to enjoy food and drink and to find satisfaction in work. Then I realized that these pleasures are from the hand of God. Who can eat or enjoy anything apart from him? God gives wisdom, knowledge and joy to those who please him. Hier's die geheim. This is the secret. He discovers a secret route. A route where God comes as the host and the guest of honor, and he brings a gift. He brings the gift of joy around the table. It's about simplicity. Most people, yes, we all love to eat. I mean, my wife at one stage sang, I love you more and more every day. There's more to love. I mean, around the waist. bodybuilding takes place around the waist for most of us. But for the author of Ecclesiastes, it's as if a divine moment, God intervenes in his life and he sees God around the table. God is the host of the table. We all eat. I remember at Varsity op universiteit het een van die studente gesê, hy eet homself vaak en slaap homself honger. Maar ek dink ons het vergeet dat die sin van die lewe, sê die prediker 5 keer, is wanneer jy tot die aha-ervaring kom, tot die insig kom, dat God by jou tafel kom aansit. Nou, as jy dit nie verstaan nie, gee het nooit verstaan nie, want meeste van ons bid by 'n ete. Maar daarna sê ons eintlik vir God, u kan maar die kamer verlaat, gaan wees dan met die minder bevoorregtes, soos meeste mense bid. Dis nie ons nie, ons eet steak, u kan by die minder bevoorregtes wees, dan gaan ons aan. En soos ek maar luister, meeste ouens praat nadat hulle gebid het, was God in elk geval nie bedoel om te bly nie. Dis soos die dominee, hy moet net gaan as hy by die troue gebid het, dan moet hy gaan, dat die party kan begin. Maar wanneer God die eregas by die tafel is, who can eat, who can enjoy anything apart from him? God gives wisdom, God gives knowledge and God gives money. So dis die verskil tussen mense wat gelukkig is en nie. God gee vir jou wysheid of jy werk self daarvoor. God gee vir jou 'n paar besittings of jy werk self daarvoor. As God dit vir jou gee, is jy gelukkig. Prediker 3 vers 10. I've seen the burden God has placed on us all. God has made everything beautiful for its own time. But even so, people cannot see the whole scope of God's work. So I concluded there's nothing better than to be happy and enjoy ourselves as long as we can. And people should eat and drink and enjoy the fruits of their labor. Tweede keer sê die prediker, weet jy waar is geluk? Jy moet gaan kyk, is op jou voorstoep. Jy stap elke dag by geluk verby, die Here se. Hy daag elke dag op met 'n porsie lewe, met 'n porsie vreugde, met 'n porsie brood. Het gaan nie oor baie kos nie. Het gaan dat jy die Here as die eregas by jou tafel raak sien. Prediker 5 vers 17 tot 19. Even so, I've noticed one thing at least. It's good for people to eat, drink and enjoy their work under the sun during the short life God has given them. It's a good thing to receive wealth from God and the good health to enjoy it. God gee 'n persent. Maak nie saak of jy in Suid-Afrika bly of jy in Duitsland bly of waar jy bly nie. God brings joy around the table. And he says, celebrate life with God. And this changed my life. So he says in chapter 8, verse 15, he turns into a consultant. He wants to consult us with good news. So I recommend having joy, because there is nothing better for people in this world than to eat, drink and enjoy life in the presence of God, meaning nie saam met jou manne met die kanne in die hande wat nie brieke het voor hulle monde en lewe nie. That way they will experience some happiness along with the hard work God gives them. And then finally in chapter 9, he writes the following, it's better to be a live dog than a dead lion. Hierdie is nogal 'n interessante filosofie. Meeste ouens in Suid-Afrika wil leeu's wees. Not so? We all want to be lions, brave men, mighty men, Amazon women. But the author of Ecclesiastes says it's better to be a live dog. Now I've noticed one thing, every time I go, or some of my friends visit Kruger or one of the game parks, and they come back, I ask them, have you seen lions? And they say yes. And I ask them, what's their names? And they say, what's wrong? I said, you see, lions never have names or personalities. You hunt lions, they turn into trophies. Dogs not. I mean, it's not as if my wife would tell me it's time, our dog is a bit old, it's time for a new trophy. And that's Snippy and Wachter and so on, all the dogs against the wall. We don't put our dogs up as trophies against our walls, but you do that with lions. I don't get it. Everybody wants to be lions, but the author of Ecclesiastes says it's better to be a live dog than a dead lion. And then he makes the following suggestions what we should do. Apart from inviting God to our table, celebrating life around tables, creating opportunities. So he says, go ahead. Eat your food with joy. It's the 5th time he says this. Drink your wine with a happy heart, for God approves of this. Weer 'n keer nie soos die alkoholist wat ereklere en drink het daar in hoofstuk 1 nie. Secondly, wear fine clothes, dra feesklere. In the biblical times, people were very poor. They could only wear 2 sets of clothes. So whenever you went to a feast, you would wear white clothes. This is what the Hebrew text says. So the author says, wear festive clothes every day. Nou eendag sê oom vir my, het jy gehoor, die goewerment gaan Kersfees wegvat. Ek sê, oom, kom ons vier nou Kersfees. Hy sê, nie grappies maak nie. Ek sê, ek maak nooit grappies oor die Bybel nie, oom. Dis nou Kersfees. Ek kan nie wag vir die goewerment vir 'n vakansiedag of vir die kerk vir 'n vakansiedag nie. Ons maak elke dag 'n vakansiedag. En as jy nie die Bybel glo nie, glo Alice in Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland daag op by die Mad Hatter. Dan vra hy vir haar, is it your birthday? Dan sê sy, no. Hy sê, what a small world, it's mine either. Hy sê, wat 'n klein wêreld. Nie van ons verjaar nie. A very merry unbirthday to you. Hulle hou elke dag 'n very merry unbirthday party. En vandat ek dit verstaan het, en terloops die skrywer Lewis Carroll was 'n predikant in Engeland. Hy het die evangelie verstaan. En van toe af gaan daar nie 'n dag in my lewe verby dat dit een van my geestelike dissiplines is om saam met mense te eet en te kuier en vrolik te wees nie. Trust die kerk om kos weg te vat. Jy's vroom as jy vas. Trust Jesus om te sê as die bruidegom by julle is, Markus 2, gaan ons nie vas nie, maar fees hou. So maak 'n fees. Verruim jou tafel, enlarge your table. Luke 14, Jesus tells us, invite the poor, the lame, the cripple, the outcast to a new meal. Invite Jesus as the guest of honor. In Revelation chapter 3, he says, he stands at the door and he knocks. And when you open up, and he tells this to his children, when you open up, I will come with a basket full of food. Jesus kom met 'n kosmandjie. Ek wil ons almal weet hoe swaar is die lewe, en jy hoef nie eens daaroor te praat nie, dit is almal se resitasie. En die prediker sê, as jy sinvol wil lewe, eet saam met die Here, eet saam met jou vriende, verruim jou tafel, bederf arme mense, deel die vreugde. En jy sal nie die einde van jou vreugde ken nie. Hoe doen jy dit? Iemand sê nou die dag vir my, dis nie so eenvoudig nie. Ek sê, ek weet, dis hoekom niemand dit reg kry nie, want almal sit en kyk vir die televisie en Sewende Laan en alles as hulle eet. Hou op, nooi die Here, eet saam met die Here, eet saam met jou vriende, dra wit klere, gooi olie op jou hare en geniet die lewe met die vrou wat jy lief het, skryf hy. He says, put fine ointment on your head, ruik lekker. Ryk die evangelie. In die Bybelse tyd het jy olie op jou gaste se koppe gegooi. Onthou dis Palestina. They had to walk in the sun. So when they knocked on the door, your wife would say, I smell the guests have arrived. Hulle ryk sterker as die kos. Dan sê jy net om hulle bietjie te geniet, gooi bietjie olie op hulle koppe. Dan kan jy jou neus nou weer oopmaak. Nou sê die prediker, gooi eers die olie op jou kop. Let the aroma of God emanate from you. Let the smell of life and joy and happiness be with you. In closing, we have the option whether we want to be happy or not. The author of Ecclesiastes tried every possible route, and then God met him on the route less traveled, right on his doorstep. Eat and be merry in the presence of God. Because as Jesus said, in the new kingdom that awaits us, He will receive us as His guests of honor. En van toe af is die Here die eregas en die gasheer by elke ete van my lewe. May you experience this today. Let's pray. Here, baie dankie dat ons vandag in U naam hier kan wees. Thank you, dear Lord, that you've blessed yesterday, that you've blessed our chairperson and all the people and all the speakers. Thank you, Lord, for every farmer, everybody involved in farming in our country. Bless us, Lord. Maak die hemele oop bokant ons. Laat ons die goedheid sien. En Here, dankie vir elkeen wat dit moontlik maak dat daar feeskos op die tafels is. Gee dat daar vandag ook feeskos in hierdie saal sal wees. Ons bid dit in Jesus se naam. Amen.
Corteva Agri-Science welcomes you to the 2022 Agri Sa Congress. Because here on South African soil, we invest with trust. We collaborate for food security, create technology for growth.
iCorteva ikhonela abalimi manje nanini.
Corteva verwelkom jou by die 2022 Agri Sa Congress. Want hier op Suid-Afrikaanse bodem belê ons met vertroue vir volhoubaarheid.
Corteva e ikemiseditse go tshegetsa balemi go ba direla molemo ka metlha.
Plaaslik groei is waarlik groei. Corteva, hier vir landbou, vir jou.
Baie dankie Dominee Stefan, baie dankie vir die gepaste wyse wat jy altyd ons kongres vir ons open en die boodskap wat ons regtig kan huis toe vat en regtig kan gaan uitleef elke dag. Hierdie Kersfees elke dag, jou nie verjaarsdag nie, elke dag. So baie dankie vir dit. Ek gaan dan sommer vir hom 'n persentjie oorhandig en dan gaan ek Nicole vra om net vir ons die verwelkoming te doen vandag.
Goeiemôre Kongres. Good morning Congress. Welcome back to day 2. Yeah, welcome back to day 2 of Agri SA's annual Congress, and good to see well-energized faces. And here the Congress members have still a lot to talk about. Jy weet, ek het gisterand gesukkel met die direkte vertaling. Ons Noord-Kaapenaars sukkel met die Engels. En vanmôre het ek weer 'n uitdaging. So ek challenge nou die vertaler daar agter, hoe sy gaan sê, het julle lekker gekuier gisterand? So ek wonder nogal hoe dit uitkom. Kuier is 'n beleide woord, jy weet, party kuier mekaar raak, en as dit nou te rof gaan, dan raak party gekuier. So dit is 'n baie geleide woord, maar ek is dankbaar om te sien dat die landbougemeenskap steeds lekker saam kan kuier, en dis nodig om hierdie geleenthede te kan hê. Congratulations to all our awards winners last night. Well deserved, and an honor for Agri SA to give these recognitions. It's an honor to welcome all of you back today, our farmer members, our leaders of representative organizations, corporate members, board members, speakers, panelists joining us as guests, and our valued sponsors for this event. Let me extend a word of welcome to Dr. Innocent Serova, CEO of Agri Sa, Dr. Humanitarian Suleiman, founder of Giver of the Givers, and all the panelists joining us today. Omri van Zyl, Kobus van Zyl, Dr. Pieter Taljaard, Dr. Kathy Hurley, Grant Jacobs, Lennox Plaatjie, Sandy Lemark en Andrea Kamfer. Baie welkom aan elkeen wat virtueel inskakel en wat ook op hierdie manier die Agri SA Kongres volg. Spesiale woord van verwelkoming aan meneer Pieter Gous, die voorsitter van Namibiese Landbou-Unie, en hele verteenwoordiging wat ons daar volg. En soos ons gister gesê het, ek die voorreg gehad om hulle kongres te kon bywoon. Baie welkom aan die ere-presidente van Agri SA, Jaapie Groblaar, Johannes Moller, Peer Verkuil, en ook Dan Kriek wat aangedui het dat hy ons virtueel volg. Without naming specific representatives, I would like to welcome representatives of political parties and members of portfolio committees, representatives of the Ministry of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, representatives of other government departments and statutory bodies, other agricultural unions that is present today, very welcome. Representatives of embassies, originated, organized businesses, as well as our business partners. Representatives of consumer organizations, sponsors, the delegation from Fox Petroleum Group of companies, as well as other guests. Baie welkom ook aan die media, baie dankie vir die verantwoordelike verslagdoening wat ons reeds in die media lees. En dankie vir julle belangstelling en werksaamhede ten opsigte van die Agri SA Kongres. Ook 'n besonderse hartlike welkom aan die borg en donateurs van Agri SA Kongres. Julle maak dit finansiëel moontlik. Julle maak dit moontlik om van sulke fantastiese fasiliteite gebruik te kan gaan maak soos wat ons hierdie kongres het, en ook die nodige tegnologie wat nodig is om ons kongres te kan uitsaai. So baie dankie daarvoor. Agri SA really appreciate your continued support also your support to our farmers, the value chain industries and the sector as a whole. Kongres, neem die borge ernstig op, besoek die stalletjies, neem kennis van ons borge, gaan gesels met ons borge en verneem hoe hierdie maatskappye u kan help om ekonomies volhoubaar te kan boer op u plase en in die besighede. Dit is besighede wat graag met landbou assosieer. Dit is besighede wat deur dik en dun by landbou staan en wat dit vir ons moontlik maak om ons boerderyaktiwiteite te kan uitbou. In the background, the logos will appear on the screen. Our sponsors, the diamond sponsors, Cotia and Agri Sa, Santam Landbou, the evening function last night, waar ons lekker gekuier het. Gold sponsors, John Deere, Absa, Afbop en Keis. Silver sponsors, FNB, GWK, Nedbank, Ubaru, Standard Bank, Voermol Feeds en Toyota Material Handling. Bronze sponsors, AfriWet, Bayer, Godisu Development Fund, NWK, OVK, Pannar, PepsiCo, Pioneer, Sanlam en Sinwes. Nickel sponsors, Agri, McRoberts, Nissan, Nitrofosca, VKB, Vleissentraal, Yara African Fertilizer, watersponsors, Ubaru, Speaker Gifts, Cortiva. Agri Sa het in samewerking, ook organisasies met wie ons samewerkingsooreenkomste het, Toyota Suid-Afrika, Fidelity ATD, Total Agri, Vodacom Engine, TNI Vanops. Die Agri Securitas het vennote, waar ons baie dankbaar is, ook 'n spesiale woord aan dank aan die donateurs aan die Agri Securitas wat laasnag oorhandig is. Dit maak werklik 'n baie groot verskil in landelike veiligheid en daarvoor baie dankie. Die vennote is Sanlam, Nissan Suid-Afrika, Vodacom, Sonfin en Crisis on Call, donateurs Senwes, NWK, Keis, Total Energies, True North Group en OFM. Agri Sa Disaster Relief Foundation have partners, Food Forward South Africa, Hello Choice and One Farm Share, donateurs Transnet, Kaap Agri, Santam, Sanlam, Standard Bank, Agro Tractors, Free State Agriculture, FNB, Parel Rotary, Mpumalanga Agriculture, of Mpumalanga Landbou, Agri Weskaap, St. John's, Agri Noord-Kaap, Agri Limpopo, Yara en Nouvel. So op die tema groei plaaslik val die klem vandag sessies op arbeid en kundigheidsoordrag, asook die uitbouing van die plaaslike ekonomie. Ons sluit die dag af in die geslote sessie as algemene jaarvergadering van Agri Sa se nuwe winsgewende maatskappy en huishoudelike aangeleenthede. So baie welkom aan elkeen van u. Dankie dat u hier is vir dag 2. Neem deel in vraatyd in die paneelbesprekings. Dit is julle kongres. Baie welkom.
Wat gee ons handewerk? Betekenis. Dit handel oor wat ons doen, wat veel wyer strek is ons eie lewens. 40 oeste is al wat jy het in jou leeftyd. Ons verstaan dat jou waardevolste jare toegewy word aan om die wêreld te voed. Kom ons laat dit geld. Tesame.
Daar's baie dankie Nicole. Hoop julle voel almal welkom. Lyk dan of ons genoeg terug is vandag, so ek wil net vir Alwyn vra, Alwyn, kan jy net sommer vir ons kongres konstitusieer? Sowel en as dan die aankondigings rondom die verkiesing. Dankie Alwyn.
Dankie Jaco, môre almal weer eens. Bly om te sien almal het dit in 'n meerdere mate in een stuk teruggemaak. Ons het bevestiging van die intekenregister gekry dat ons wel behoorlik gekonstitueer is en dat hier quorum teenwoordig is. So ons kan voortgaan met die formele verrigtinge vir die oggend. Net vinnig die aankondiging van die uitslag van die verkiesing gistermiddag. Dit was vir die 3 direksielede van die bedryfskamer en die 3 lede wat gekies was is meneer Neil Joubert, meneer SK Makikana en meneer Derek Matthews. Baie geluk aan julle. Die enigste stemformaliteit wat ons nodig het om vandag af te handel is die 4 resolusies wat ons ter tafel gelê het vir die konstituering of die inwerkingstelling van die nuwe NPC. Die resolusies is almal grootendeels te doen met administratiewe funksies wat ons in plek moet kry vir die NPC om nou voort te gaan. So, en dit het gehandel, en julle het almal die kennisgewing gekry, en dit handel met die aanstelling vir die ouditeure. Ons stel Ashton weer aan as die ouditeure vir die NPC, die daarstelling van die audit en risikokomitee, die aanstelling van die sosiale en etiese komitee, en, ekskuus, ek moet by die laaste punt uitkom, en die, en dan die sosiale en etiese komitee, die, en ja, natuurlijk, baie belangrik, die bevestiging van die raad van direkteure vir die NPC, en wat ons gesê het is dat die mense wat verkies is, gister sal outomaties dan voortgaan en bevestig word as die raad vir vandag. So ladies and gentlemen, what we've arranged with Lumi, firstly we're going to use the devices again, hopefully today they will work the first time around. So what we will do today is we follow the same procedure as yesterday, which is that you will use the device, you need to insert the card, and then Lumi will open it up for the voting. What we've arranged with the auditors is that the 4 resolutions will simultaneously be put to you. In other words, we will have Resolution 1, Resolution 2, Resolution 3, and Resolution 4. They will be displayed on the device, and you will then have an option to vote for or against the resolutions. So that would be, we've decided that would be the simplest way of dealing with it. We're going to open the voting now and leave it open for the duration of the morning so that it can be done in due course. And if anybody, please, if you experience any challenges with the device or you see that it doesn't go through, it looks like it's not working, please just go to the back to Andre, who made the presentation yesterday about the functioning of the device, and he will assist you in getting it done. Is that?
Ek kan 'n volhoubare boerdery bou met die regte vernoot. Met meer as 100 jaar se ondervinding in die finansiering van landbou, het ons generasies boere gehelp om te floreer. Laat Absa u help om u gesin die toekoms in te neem. Ons doen meer sodat u u familienalatenskap kan bewaar. Dis Africanacity. Besoek gerus ons webtuiste by www.absa.co.za.
Baie dankie Alwyn. Julle het almal gehoor, so stem asseblief, laat ons maar die proses so gou as moontlik afhandel. Dit gaan ook maak dat ons kongres aan die einde so bietjie korter is as ons hierdie kan afhandel. Ek wil graag vir Christo van 'n rede gou geleentheid gee om 1 of 2 afkondigings te maak, en Christo is dan sommer die voorsitter vir die volgende besprekingspunt ook. So I would like to ask the guest speakers on the 4th theme, growing local through employment and skills transfers, to come forward. Christo, who leads the discussion, Dr. Innocent Sirova from Agri Sa, Mr. Omri van Sail from Agri Enterprises, Mr. Kobus van Sail from Agri Northwest, and Dr. Pieter Taljaard from Grain SA, just to come forward. Thank you very much. Thanks, Christo.
Dankie, Jaco. Rian Dupree het my gevra dat ek net die volgende onder julle aandag moet bring. Hy het vir elke provinsie 'n stel van hierdie boeke. Dit handel maar oor die beheer en ook identifisering van back and close siekte. Ek dink daar het van die provinsies dit reeds ontvang, maar asseblief, die res van die boekies is beskikbaar by Rian. Rian, kan ek net 'n aanduiding kry, waar sit jy? Daar sit Rian, né? Aan my linkerkant. So hierdie stel boekies moet weer terugkom na jou toe, né? Sodat al die provinsies net dit kom afhaal. Dan, dames en here, die ordereëlings vir vandag is maar dieselfde soos gister. Dankie, Rian. Die nooduitgange is, jy weet, oral waar daar staan exit. Dit is ook 'n rookvrye sone, en natuurlik die voorsitters in beheer van al die gesprekke bepaal dan die ordereëlings in terme van wie kan praat en wie nie. Maar andersins, jy weet, etes sal ook aan die buitekant bedien word en sovoorts. Then very, very important for those who need translation services, Can I get an indication? Is that service still available? Translation? Okay, they're right at the back, so please. Oh, daar aan die linkerkant, daar heel agter in die hoek. So those who need a headset, please go and collect it over there, so that you can be part of the conversation. Kom ons begin dan.
Agri Sa's vision is to enable a skilled and prosperous agricultural sector. It is our mission to increase access to relevant skills that through strategic partnerships and credible research creates an actual impact and inclusive economic growth. We really cannot overstate the importance of the agricultural sector for every South African, and we are dedicated to growing the next generation of South African agricultural leaders.
Goed, dames en heren, ladies and gentlemen, just a short announcement. Apparently there is an accident on the road towards this building, and there will be some people that will be late. I think Dr. Shirova is also caught up in that accident. But Dr. Suleiman has informed us that he is close by. So let us start with our conversation. This morning we will focus on growing local through employment and creation of employment opportunities, skills transfer, and so forth. And I think this is critical, especially in terms of an industry that becomes more and more technologically orientated and very, very sophisticated in terms of scientific development and so forth. So I'm going to give each of the panelists an opportunity perhaps to just give their input in terms of skills development and skills transfer, and how we need to adapt in terms of the challenges or the changes that is taking place almost on a daily basis. So, Kobus.
Good morning, Christo. Good morning, Congress. Ja, Christo, ek het gisterand klink het vir my, is daar 'n paar maande aan die vlakkant ingegooi. En jy het my so 'n bietjie aan die diepkant ingegooi. Ek is maar 'n gewone boer van die Noordwes-provinsie af, so Kongres vergewe maar as die woorde so 'n bietjie skeef uitkom. So Christy, I think let's start off. I think first of all I made a note, you've probably heard of the Stockdale paradox. And please Google it if you haven't heard of it before, but it's really the discipline to face the brutal facts, and that should be the start point of the reality that you face. And I heard a gentleman yesterday said that if you discuss, especially employment with government, that they say, yeah, but the private sector just talk profits. So I thought that's quite peculiar. And the theme that we have is growing local through employment and skills transfer. So you grow to get employment. I thought it's quite a curious concept. In our farming business, I think we invest, we hope to make a profit, we sometimes do, we sometimes don't, and then you have to reinvest. You have to reinvest, and that is a capital allocation decision in its purest form. One of our industry leaders said that farmers, you must look at your balance sheet, and I thought, I don't know how to read it, I don't know what it means. I think what it means is you must decide how you're going to allocate the capital. Are you going to invest in fixed assets? Are you going to train your people? I think that's something that we as farmers sort of put last. And sometimes the return on the invested capital in people and human can actually give you the greatest return on that investment. But if you reinvest, let's say, then you grow. And unfortunately, and that's why I say we have to face reality, is only then, once you've grown, you can actually employ more people. Employment is actually a byproduct of growth, and that's the theme of this Congress. And we have to speak to government in terms of profits. It is our duty as farmers. If you just think of it, a bankrupt farmer's employment capability is zero. We have to speak profit, unfortunately, and we have to put this topic on the table. And just to give you an idea of a typical farming operation, people tend, I think in government, to think that it's a pot of gold, maybe farming at the end of the rainbow. Let us just talk about farmers registered at SARS, so it's commercial farmers. There's roughly 40,000. 2/3 of those farmers, the turnover that they report to SARS is less than R1 million a year. Between 1 and 10 million, we get 22% of the farming community. Only 8% actually earn a turnover more than 10 million. You're in an environment that is actually 5 of the 11 subsectors is a low margin environment. Only 3 of the 11 is a high margin environment. And then you have to compete globally. So that's the constraint that we as farmers sit with. And that is the environment. So the question I think that you pose is, within that environment, how are we going to employ more people? And I think our president yesterday said that the question should be, how can we give more people work? Because that is really how we're going to get out of poverty. So maybe as introductory remark, that I will.
Thanks, Kobus, for that. Let me go to Dr. Pieter. Your opening remarks.
Ja, thanks, Christo. Kobus, ek dink die belangrikheid wat ons vir die regering moet verduidelik is daai winste waaroor ons praat, want vir Graan Suid-Afrika, net so met ons ontwikkelingsprogram, is winsgewendheid belangrik, want sonder winsgewendheid is daar nie volhoubaarheid nie. Maar daai wins is wins na belasting. So jy moet eers jou belasting betaal en dan sit wat vir jou oorbly, en ek dink dis die gedeelte van besigheid wat ons mooi aan almal moet verduidelik, maar ek is gevra om ook so 'n bietjie te praat oor die ontwikkelingsprogram as ons gou die skyfies kan opkry, maar nou wil ek net hoor Jaco, Nicole, ek het die ding ontvang en ek ken nie die ou wat ons my gegee het nie, en daai vriend van jou waar jy gister van gepraat het, sê vir my dit kan wees dat ek iets gaan opblaas met die ding. Ek wil net hoor, kan ek die knoppie druk, want vir my lyk dit soos 'n ding wat op my jaghond se Okay, want dit lyk vir my soos 'n ding wat op 'n jaghond se nek jy mee beheer, maar nou is ek net bang met wat die ander kan die straat aangaan, is dit, maar okay, nee, dan kan ek hom druk hierso. Goed, so, Christo, ek dink wat belangrik is, dankie vir die geleentheid, maar soos ek gesê het, dit pas baie goed in, Kobus, die winsgewendheid van graanprodusente is vir Graan SA uiters belangrik, en daarom die volhoubaarheid, maar wat ons in die ontwikkelingsprogram doen, ons noem dit ons boerdery ontwikkelingsprogram, Farmer Development, gaan ook oor huishoud voedselsekuriteit, en ek gaan nou vir julle wys die kategorieë van boere wat ons het, maar ook oor werkskepping en die rural economy, wat 'n belangrike gedeelte van dit is. So as ons vinnig kyk na Graan SA se ontwikkelingsprogram, Farmer Development Program, dan gaan dit op verskeie vlakke, soos ek gesê het, maar dit gaan oor studiegroepe, daar's maandelikse vergaderings met hulle, daar's opleidingskursusse, daar's proewe wat ons doen, maar ek gaan vir julle wys wat se gemate van die proewe is, en die res van die vennote in die waardeketting help ons met daai proewe. So ons probeer fokus waar ons regtig 'n verskil kan maak op hierdie programme, en dan natuurlik ook boere daar. So die produsente, boere wat dan opkomend is en potensiaal wys, hulle gaan dan in 'n program in, en ons sien dit eintlik as as ek dit in Engels kan sê, the graduation van hulle, van waar jy by minder as 'n hektaar begin, deur die ranks, en dan in die proses, en die groot doel daarmee is om hulle kommersieel te kry. So dan word kalk en mentorskap en versekering begin 'n belangrike aspek speel waar dit groter raak. Ons het ook 'n program waar ons gaan oor insetkoste en waar die lenings dan op 'n omdraai basis is, 'n revolving credit. So sodra 'n produsent 'n lening kry, dis nie 'n tipe van 'n sagte lening, hy moet dit terugbetaal, word van hom verwag, hy word aangemoedig om dit terugbetaal, maar as hy dit nie terugbetaal nie, is daar geen manier dat ons regtig hom kan opvang. Daar's nie 'n vorm van sekuriteit nie. So daar werk ons met vennote, en dan ons meer gevorderde boere, ons het so 2 weke terug het ons die herdenking gehad, en eintlik, we call it a celebration van die boere wat regtig presteer het, en daar het ons verskillende kategorieë gehad, van verskeie boere van 250 ton wat hulle produseer, tot die topboer wat oor die 3000 ton nou produseer wat deur so 'n program gekom het, en ek dink dis die sukses waarvan ons wil praat. En dan die gevorderde boere van selfsprekend, hulle kry ondersteuning, mentorskap op 'n 1-tot-1 basis en alles in samewerking met fondse wat van vennote afkom en van trusts af. So het ek sommer net so die verskillende kategorieë hoe ons dit opbreek, subsistence, smallholder, potential commercial, new era en dan verskillende groepe of communities of gemeenskappe. En daar is die hoeveelheid boere wat ons het en dan interessant daaronder in die pie chart net so vinnig julle sal sien 'n baie naby aan 'n 50-50 split tussen boere en manlike en vroulike boere wat ons daar ondersteun van die boere wat ons daar lys. Dan op die volgende een net so 'n bietjie oor tyd. Ek het net na 5 jaar gekyk, die syfers wat ek hoofsaaklik vir julle wys daar is die getalle boere wat ons nou in die Beyond Abundance projek doen. Dis nou sal julle sien die hektare daar in die derde ry sê vir jou die gemiddelde hektare, hoe dit oor tyd verander het, maar dis tipies rondom 1 hektaar. En selfs op hierdie vlak is dit nie 'n volle skenking nie. So die insette wat gelewer word nie in 'n 100% gesubsidieer nie. Julle kan sien daar onder in die tabelletjie, die contribution in 1920 was 3.500, so het hy opgegaan as gevolg van die stygende insetkoste. So dit raak die boere net so, maar in 'n mate onthou, hulle koop kleinmaat. En dis deel van die groter projek. Dit gaan om gesamentlike aankope, die aflewering. Baie van hulle is in ver gebiede, baie ver van plekke waar hulle kan insette koop. So wys jy maar net sommer hoe dit gestyg oor tyd. En ek dink van die groot suksesse daar in die rooi heel onder sal julle sien van daai boere. 'n jaar terug het ons een van die opkomende boere gehad wat op die kommersiële graan groei vir goud kompetisie gekompeteer het en 'n derde plek gekry het en dis eintlik ongelooflik. So daar's ouens wat 11 ton, 4.6, 6.4 ton, dis nou mielies, 7.7 ton per hektaar geproduseer het en dit kom regtig van 'n situasie waar hulle was met 'n paar sakkies per hektaar. Maar onthou dis baie klein hektare. So ek dink hierdie is regtig die Beyond Abundance is regtig waarmee so groot verskil maak, want jy vat daai ou van 'n plek waar hy nie eers vir homself kan kos het nie tot 'n surplus wat hy kan begin verkoop. En dan die volgende net so ook oor die 5 jaar wat ons gedoen het as 'n span opleidingskursusse wat ons aangebied het, amper net 800. Die mense wat opgelei is 13.300, baie min proewe. En hier is proewe wat Graan SA self plant. Maar in samewerking met ander vennote is daar natuurlik baie meer proewe, maar ek wys net vir julle hier uit dat dit nie ons hoof fokus is nie, maar ons doen dit ook om demonstrasies te hê. Boere daar amper 70 gedoen. Studiegroep vergaderings gereël 9200 en plaasbesoeke. Dis nou oor die hele program in die hele spektrum van die verskillende boere, 5100 wat ons gedoen het. En net so vinnig, ek gaan nie eers elkeen lees nie, maar net hier is die lys van die opleidingskursusse wat ek hier wil uitwys. Jy sal sien is baie prakties, baie op die plaas vlak, maar is 'n redelik intensiewe kursus, 5 dae wat hulle daar het en die maksimum deelnemers 25. So baie 1-tot-1 opleiding wat daar gegee word, maar dit lei vir die verskillende graan en oliesaad gewasse. Hier is die volgende ene, maar ook baie op opleiding. So ek dink baie van hierdie is graan spesifiek, maar 'n groter meerderheid van dit is kan op baie ander plaasvlak op ander kommoditeite ook toegepas word en belangrik is en dis die kursusse wat oor tyd ontwikkel het wat beskikbaar is, wat bestaan. Ja, so ek dink dan wil ek oorgaan na navorsing en die groot ding hoekom Graan SA by navorsing betrokke is, gaan dit spesifiek oor Mind the Gap. Die van julle wat al in die Verenigde Koninkryke was, sal die teken daar ken. En die konsep van Mind the Gap gaan oor om seker te maak navorsers in die land doen navorsing wat prakties toepaslik is, wat iets beteken vir die boer op produsente vlak. En dis die hele rede. So ek gaan vinniger hier oor gaan Christo net om vinnig te noem wat ons daar doen. Dit gaan maar oor die kundigheidsbasis en ontwikkeling. Maar die hooffokus wat ons uitgelig het en hierdie sal beskikbaar wees, ons kan dit deel, maar is maar agronomie, plantpatologie, plantteeling teeling en dan ook data science. En data science spesifiek in terme van agronomie. Onlangs het ons met van ons vennote gepraat en hulle het vir ons gesê, maak seker julle lei genoeg agronome op, maar ook die regte tipe agronoom. Die ou wat met data kan werk, wat jou data kan lees en die toekoms kan verstaan. So 'n belangrike gedeelte soos ek gesê het, is die ontwikkeling daarvan. In die afgelope 5 jaar, sedert 2018 het ons 92 beurse uitgereik op verskillende vlakke van honneurs, MSc en PhD, maar ook internskappe en tegnikuste wat befonds en ondersteun is. En hier weer eens is dit nie Graan SA geld nie, dis nie heffingsgeld nie, maar dis waar Graan SA verder gaan met vennootskappe met die departement van DSI Science and Innovation, maar ook ander industrievennote soos byvoorbeeld Sakta, Sasol Trust en van die ander trusts wat fondse beskikbaar maak om beurse aan studente op te lei. En spesifiek word hierdie studente gekeer op die projek waarop hulle werk, om seker te maak dis 'n bedryf toepaslike projek wat gaan navorsing en voordele lewer. So ek gesê, dis 'n konsortium basis, ons kry die befondsing daar en dit gaan alles op meriete. En dit gaan vir swart geteerde en Indiër studente en is alles plaaslik. Die fokus daar, plaaslike studente. En dit gaan alles om die kapasiteit te versterk. So ek gaan net so vinnig aangaan. Hierso is die verdeling van sedert 15 wat met hierdie Department of Science and Innovation Funding gebeur het. Amper so 60% was vroulike studente wat befonds is, by verre die meerderheid swart studente en dan ook gekleurde studente en ook 'n paar Indiër en wit studente wat befonds is. So dis sommer net so en ja, Christo, dis waarmee ek wil inlei. Dankie.
Sjoe. Jy is soos 'n waffelsenaars boot, jy vat daai gap en jy maak seker ons kry die boodskap. Maar ek dink kom ons gee vir Graan SA 'n ongelooflike hande klap, dames en here. En ek dink nie hierdie suksesstories is beperk net tot Graan SA nie. Die wolgroeiers, die RPO, ek weet Kwanalo, die sitrusgroeiers, Saptrop, almal van hierdie organisasies, ek weet die Roseintjies is besig om 'n wine academy oop te maak daar in langs die Oranje rivier, Keimus van alle plekke. If you go around and you go and visit all of these commodity organizations, they just do absolutely stunning work. And I trust that the media will take note of this. And this is the kind of story that we need to get out there. Because the agriculture sector is really leading the way in terms of the development of people investing, especially in youth, and making sure that they do have the necessary skills. And later on, we will hear from the Pulse Group and from Kwanalo, all of them, under the leadership of Dr. Kathy Earle, will also share their stories. Because it's not just about training, it's about the development of people and the development of communities. I always have another saying, I say, you cannot have islands of wealth in a sea of poverty. And that's become a bigger problem in South Africa, the gap between the haves and the have-nots. If we don't bridge that, then we're going to have even more serious socio-economic problems going forward. Maar nou, dis nie my job om hier te sit en mooi stories te bak nie. Omri, julle het enterprises aan die gang gekry. Wat is daarin gebeur? What is happening? Please share with us.
Dankie Christo. Ja, ek wil net 'n storie van Kobus hier langs my vertel. Kobus vertel altyd sy vir sy pa, as hy droog gemaak het, dan sê sy pa vir hom, hoekom het jy dit gedoen? Dan sê hy vir sy pa, maar hy het sy beste gedoen. Dan sê sy pa, as dit jou beste is, moet dit nooit weer doen. So when I was 19, I hitchhiked up to Zimbabwe. I hitchhiked through Zimbabwe, Kariba, Vic Falls, Kariba, Mana Pools, all the way down to Karoi, back to Harare. Back then you could do it. And at the time it was a land that was full of hope, it was prosperous, it was working. And about 5 years ago I was invited to the Commercial Farmers Union's meeting in Zimbabwe. And what I noticed is the stark comparison to what it was. I mean, there's nothing left in that country. People are hungry. There's 2 million of them here in South Africa. It's an economy that went from 0 to 0 in a very short time. And that's because of the lack of the complete decline in the agriculture systems, property rights, etc. Look, Innocent, you must just get...
I'll share my mic with...
So Zimbabwe's gone. It'll never recover. So what that made me realize, and I think we've been in operation for 2 years now, is that the two things that we want to do, our mission is to create economic growth through agriculture. And the second one is to create a knowledge economy. If you look at the studies all through the world, the only economies that work are knowledge economies. If you look at Singapore, you look at the Middle East, you look at, these were all based on knowledge, right? And one of the things that we feel very powerful and passionate about is creating a knowledge economy in South Africa. So here we have about 2.5 million emerging farmers, abject poverty, many troubles. I mean, most of you are in the rural areas, you would know about that. And to create knowledge economies in rural areas is a critical mission for agriculture, for everybody, not just for some of us, for everybody. In fact, it's a moral imperative to do that. And even if you lift that farmer from a 3 out of 10 to a 5 out of 10, that immediately makes a difference to him, his family, his communities, etc. En ek dink, Christo, dis een van die goed wat ons doen. So in ons opleidingsprogramme, dis nou, ons werk met meer as 1000 opkomende boere reg oor die land, saam met verskeie vennote, privaat sektor vennote. En ek dink vir die verskil wat ons maak en die verskil wat ons sien op die grond, maak al klaar baie groot verskil. En so is dit ons almal se missie om saam te werk en te probeer om 'n verskil te maak in Suid-Afrika. Die tweede ding is, jy weet, ek sê altyd, as jy nie kapitaal het nie, dan is dit soos 'n klomp mense wat saamstem, ons met Kaap toe gaan, ons klim mee in 'n bussie, maar daar's nie diesel in die bussie. So ons kan nie ry nie. We can't go anywhere. And that's where capital comes in. So one of the projects that we're running on behalf of the Motsepe Foundation is to actually invest in partnerships between traditional people, traditional leaders, and commercial farmers, and agriculture businesses and agriculture players in the value chain. So we've received 200 million from him. Our loan terms are low. It's between 3 and 4%. It's patient capital. We've already spent the first 77 million, and we unlocked an additional 190 million because of that. So our first tranche of funding on 2 projects was 220 million rands. We create 2,500 jobs, sustainable jobs. And this is not grant money, it's securitized money, and that's an example of the private sector that can make a massive impact on rural development and rural people. And so, yeah, Kirsty, that's my opening statement. It's not as long as Pieter's, but that in essence is what we do.
Thanks, Omri. Dr. Sharova, welcome. Yes, I believe there was an accident on the road. You were a bit trapped in that commotion, but we're just very happy that you're with us. Perhaps give us an overview, and I'll give you your 4 to 5 minutes. Please give us an overview. What is the Agri Sa Congress doing? Where does this money come from? And how do you ensure that you set particular standards in terms of training and so forth?
Thank you so much, Program Director Christo, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Christo is equally a board member at Agri Sa Congress, for those who may not be aware. So what we do there, we are matchmakers. We look for single ladies who look beautiful and go and check for handsome young men. Others are grown up, they might have divorced or had some challenges. And we interview the characters of the young ladies and the characters of the those who are single. And then we come and recommend to you that we think this one can be a good woman for you. Take her out and go and see. As Agri Sa Congress, our role is to match. We do matchmaking. We check what the industry, as yourselves, as the captains of the industry, look forward for, the type of skills that you require in an area where you are running your own business. We then come to the colleges or training providers and say, these are the types of skills that we can provide from the universities, TVET colleges with agriculture, agricultural colleges. Now, in the main, now of late, what we are finding is, we are finding that the handsome men, they come to us they say the beautiful young ladies that you are producing are no longer beautiful anymore. And as such, we are unable to continue with them. So in other words, they say the skills that you are producing on this other side are not the skills that we require because we are the captains of industry. This is the work that we are doing every day. Now, as part of the solution, Christo, that we are doing behind the scenes. We were in the Western Cape just yesterday, wherein we met with all the 11 agricultural colleges and indicate to them that, look, the types of the skills that we are producing, the learners, after they have completed, they are unable to provide assistance to either commercial farmers. Some can't even assist small-scale farmers for that matter. Are we producing the quality of the students that we want? What is it that we can do? So we then agreed that together, we need those agricultural colleges, TVET colleges with agriculture, and also the universities, particularly those that have our agricultural stream. Agri Sa, on behalf of a government, we then coordinate. We call the captains of industry yourselves. We sit down and say, this is the type of curriculum that is taking place, that is where learners are being taught at these institutions. How can you come in practically with the challenges that you are facing, so that as the captains of industry, you influence the curriculum that is being taught at the universities, at TVET colleges, and also these agricultural colleges. But the first thing that we said amongst ourselves was, wait a minute, we cannot go to the captains of industry first. Let's first get 3 months wherein it's only colleges, TVET colleges, and the universities we sit and streamline that the curriculum is almost the same, is standardized in the whole South Africa. Because what the University of Free State is doing in the agriculture is not exactly 100% the same with the University of Venda or Stellenbosch. And the students that complete at agricultural colleges, when they are supposed to go to the universities, in the main they start from zero. It's not yet standardized wherein they are able to go and do advanced diploma in agricultural science. So these are the things that for the next coming 3 months we are doing. We standardize it amongst ourselves on the higher education part. When we are done, 4 months from now, we are coming to you. But moreover, Christo, that we have just agreed yesterday was, there won't be any college or training institution that is not linked with commercial farmers. Because we want to link these students directly where you are. For example, let's say ZZ2 in Zanin. So we have an agricultural college in Tombisilika and also Madzivandira. We are able to coordinate, facilitate the meeting so that all this, all ourselves as commercial farmers, we are able to have strong input to the colleges. It doesn't help. We are putting 49.6 million to the agricultural colleges to support them over a period of 3 years. But what is being produced? Are the skills relevant? People are now looking for fitter and turners, electricians as top priority skills. What are we doing? The artisans that we are funding so much for, because one artisan is 206,000 rand for a period of 3 years for that artisan to complete. When they have completed and done and acquired all the skills, what happens to them? Because we have been producing this for the past 5-10 years, where are they now? Which contribution are they doing to agriculture? By the way, the minister during our AGM a day before yesterday in Cape Town said, CEO, go and appreciate farmers at Agri SA in the Congress, that during the toughest of times, Dr. Blade Nzimande, during the toughest times, agriculture held this country when people were giving up. You held us together, and for that we shall always be appreciative. And we are confident that if we work closely together, advise us, give us direction, we are going somewhere. Thank you, Christo.
Dr. Sharova, colleges, agricultural colleges. There was a program the other night on TV. There was a guy from Agri SA also quite critical about the state of our agricultural colleges. How are we going to turn that situation around? Because some of them are not in a very good state. The quality of lecturers that take place there is not up to standard. And yes, I had some of our members here yesterday also express their concerns about it. Isn't there a possibility that the industry can sit with those college principals and we can perhaps come up with some kind of collective strategy to turn the situation around? Because the industry depend on those students who get trained there.
Thank you very much, Christo. One of the things on the program that we had there, it was a carte blanche program on the program. That CEO, just give us your views on this program that was had the past 2-3 weeks. I said, we must make peace with this. People have messed up. Whether it's yourselves as colleges, but you accept that you could have done things better. So instead, we agreed that within a period of 12 months, we can call the same carte blanche program to say this is where we are. What we have done as AgriSeta, we sent the CFO and acting CEO to visit all the 11 agricultural colleges and compile a report so that when we talk to the minister, we are extremely factual. So yesterday it was part of giving them a preliminary report to say, guys, you have messed up. We can't, there's no two ways about it. We can't protect a wrong thing that has been done. So deal with the consequence management on that, because you, as things stand, you belong to the Department of Agriculture. There's this transition from Department of Agriculture to the Department of Higher Education and Training, which by March next year, that's the target which the two honorable ministers have indicated that they will be able to indicate to the world that this department, these agricultural colleges have now moved into the Department of Higher Education and Training. Christo, as Agri SA, I think we can meet them within 4 weeks from now, and then together we come up with a program where the captains of the industry, they can have a strong input on the curriculum within those agricultural colleges.
Excellent. I think that is an undertaking, if not within the next 4 weeks, because then I think it's Christmas. Then I'm down at the West Coast. I don't know if you know where the West Coast is. But I think this will be an excellent idea. We can bring our role players together with those principals, sit in a room and try to chart a way forward. Thanks, for Dr. Shirova. But let me go back to Pieter. Jy het amper 15 minute gevat. So. Maar laat ek gou hier kom na Kobus toe. Kobus, you're an engineer, you understand, the complexities of farming and what is happening in that space. Do you believe our training systems are really, aligned with all of these latest developments?
Christo, ja. It's actually a great question, but before I start, ek wil net vir Weskaap sê, gisterande billetjie, vandag 'n hulletjie. Het is lekker om hier voor te sit. En Friedel, ja, ek sien dat is, daar gaan ek maar 'n bietjie swaar daar by jou, maar sterkte. Christo, yes, let us just, we should also always talk facts. Let's just look at the 2017 census. What is the trends with full-time employment in the agricultural sector? Ordinary workers increased by more or less 10%, but interestingly enough, managers, supervisors and administrative staff all increased by more than 50%. So the trend and the data tells you that in those categories, managers, supervisors, administration staff, is really quite a requirement for commercial farms. I mean, it's in the data. So you talked about the trends. So the trends in the broad agriculture in South Africa is really high value, high margin products. In primary agriculture, you get increase in the use of technology. We get less farmers, but we get more production. Our farming units are with time getting larger. That's why we need more managers in a sense. And then interestingly enough, in 2007, there was no farms involved in services. In 2017, they noted 823 farms also now becoming involved in services. So it just tells you that the complexity of the farming, commercial farming environment is changing. Technical skills like engineering becomes important if you do vertical integration. If you use technology.
Sorry, what is meant by vertical integration?
So in other words, you have your farm, but you also have now agro-processing facility on the farm. As an example, I mean, there's a lot of examples. You have let's say, a feedlot, but you build a abattoir, and then if you build the abattoir, you open a chain of slaghuizen. Sorry, I'm running out of English. Butcheries. So it just the data tells you that it becomes more complex as time progresses. And the skills that you need for that also change. It might have been easier 10 years ago to train, for instance, a guy with a tractor, but it might be more difficult now, and you need to use information technology more, like the knowledge economy. And my ears pricked a bit when Dr. Shirova said that we must link our colleges with commercial farmers, if that's the skills that we want to expand. So I think that's a very nice idea. And maybe you'll talk later about the AMMP, but I found very little in the AMP about that specific thing, and I think that must be explored maybe in future a bit more. But we'll probably discuss it a little bit later. Thanks, Chris.
Okay, so we've got Nicole, Jaco is Dr. Suleiman here. Okay, so then we have to conclude. So, colleagues, just maybe a very brief point from Peter, Omri, and then Dr. Shirova, and then we'll have to conclude. Peter?
Yeah, thanks, Christian. Apologies, I just tried to improvise for the accident outside, but anyway. So I think the key, yesterday it was also mentioned by Jan that human resources, the people, is the biggest asset in the business. For Grain SA, it's also the same case, and I think everybody here will agree with me. In their businesses, the people, trained people, skilled people, passionate, motivated people, those is the real asset in your business. And I think that's what we're talking about here. And the strength of South Africa really lies in the diversity we have, but also in the relative young population we have. So there's great opportunities. We just need to get it rolling.
Omri?
Yeah, Christo, I think a message from my side would be that we know that human capital development is a key priority for farmers, for agribusinesses, for everybody in South Africa. And Agri SA has the best platform on the continent to fire that thing up. And it's such a wonderful opportunity to form part of the Agri SA group so that we can tactically and strategically make a massive difference to the human capital development in South Africa. Thank you.
So when you talk about the Agri SA platform, we talk about our provinces, our
everybody,
commodities, our corporate members, and I think that's the kind of potential that we should leverage in the interest of growing the skills base of the country. Dr. Shirova, 50 seconds for you.
We have the CFO Muhausivila here. Where are you, CFO? And so that those whom during break we can't engage, we also have Friki Foshe around here. So we are simply saying for all of you who are here, we are ready to place any number of the students that you want in your area, and as Agri Sa Congress will be able to pay them a stipend for a period perhaps for 18 months as agreed with the Honorable Minister. All we are requesting is please skill them practically so that they see perhaps 1 or 2 after the whole program you are able to absorb them. But more importantly, if you come to us and say, yes, our 20 million, we are ready to partner with you, for as long as the program is going to end up with young people employed, we are more than happy to partner with you and continue to advise us because you are the captains, you know better than us. Please help us. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. But they mustn't arrive there on the farm with looking like me with a tie and a jacket. They need a blue overall and they must be prepared to work. So thank you, gentlemen, for your contribution this morning. I trust that we will have this conversation between the captains of industry and the colleges and that the CETA will facilitate that. so that we can, help to turn the situation around there as well. Thank you very much. Can we just get the gifts, Asha? Just hang on for a second. We just want to hand you all of those little gifts there.
Christo, baie dankie vir die paneel ook, vir die goeie inligting wat julle vir ons deurgegee het. Ek dink is baie belangrik dat ons kennis neem van al die goeie werk wat reeds gedoen word. Hier is vreeslik baie goeie projekte en ons moet dit probeer meer blootstel en meer in die oop kry, want dis wat landbou doen, dis wat ons is, ons help mense, ons dra by. I just want to make sure everybody has voted, everybody knows how to vote. It's a bit tricky. You need to go into the resolution and then you vote inside. So just make sure that you've voted. If you haven't voted, just join Alwyn and the guys from Lumi at the back, that they can help you. We are glad to and honored to welcome Dr. Imtiaz Suleiman from Gift of the Givers. He's a guy that really has a heart for people, making a difference in the communities on ground level. Not taking the credit, but really wanting to make the difference. And he really does, and he really has in the past as well, working together with us as well in the drought-stricken areas of the Northern Cape and other areas. And we really want to thank you, Dr. Suleiman, for the work that you've done and the leadership actually that you've given by doing things, not waiting for people, but doing things. We're looking forward to have a listen to you. You're more than welcome to join the podium.
Thank you very much. The President Jacob Minnaar, Christopher Ndoyde, and the other gentlemen, sorry, I don't know your guys' names, and everybody else here, thank you very much for the invite. Before I start about my background and the kinds of things that we do, wherever I go, the question is the same. Is there hope for the country? Is the country falling apart? Are we safe in the country? Must we leave? What's the hope for the future? Everything is fine. This is the greatest country on earth. And we need to go back and understand it in context. We survived 1994. Before 1994, around 27 April, people were stockpiling food, keeping their passports ready, getting ready to leave the country. People were expecting violence and bloodshed. After so many years of repression and oppression, people thought it's going to be a bloodbath. The international media were waiting for something critical to happen. It was the most boring story for them ever. Nothing happened. There was peace, people snaked in queues, and if you take it from that one incident alone, it shows South Africans are very patient people. South Africans are very humble people. South Africans have a spirit of Ubuntu. South Africa want to build things together. And we take that lesson from 1994. I'm not a normal tourist. I'm a disaster tourist. I only visit disaster zones, I don't do anything else. We've assisted 45 countries. We've seen how people have torn each other apart. The revenge and hatred goes on for hundreds of years. You can't fix it. It's impossible to fix it. It runs in our blood for hundreds of years. By God's grace, we didn't have that. We had a very peaceful transition. Things went well, and then things went pear-shaped. That's the history of civilizations, of countries. It goes up and down. But all of you are believers. Everything is about prayer. Faith, prayer, resoluteness, and resilience can fix anything. And I'll come back to that. South Africa can be fixed. It's not impossible. It's not rocket science. Simple things can be done, but it requires a change in mindset. It requires a change in how we think, how we perceive things, how we do things, how we relate to people. Those are critical factors to fix this country. So what I'm saying now, I'm going to come back to this a little later and give you something from the beginning to talk about all these principles about mindset change, how to change your soul, how to do things in the right way. Gift of the Givers is not my organization. I didn't get up one morning and say, I think, okay, today I'll form an organization. I'll give it a name. I'll get some founding members, write a constitution, and do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It never happened like that. Gift of the Givers is totally spiritual, and this country needs spirituality now. And that spirituality started not in 1992, when the organization started. It actually started when I reflect in 1985. God always says, introspect, look, think, reflect. 1985, I was doing internship in King Edward Hospital in Durban. I wanted to specialize in internal medicine, but there was not much opportunity then, so there was no post. I couldn't study any further. I needed to go then into private practice. Now, as an aside, given the current situation in the country, the challenges we've had with the drought and a lot of things, when things don't work out, like I wanted to be a physician, but it wasn't possible. When things don't work out, there's no need to get depressed. There's no need to fall back and give up hope. Always look at the situation with a different eye. I spoke about mindset change. You see, when we pray, we don't pray for what we want. We pray for what is good for us. Because what you want may not necessarily be good for you. And that's something very important to remember. That go back and say why certain things didn't work out, and you may find the goodness in why it didn't work out. So I then went into general practice in Pietermaritzburg in January 1986. The week I got into Pietermaritzburg from Durban, an Afrikaner guy from Pretoria, from the city, came to Pietermaritzburg to teach French at the University of Natal. My neighbor, who's a butcher, tells me, you know, this guy's come from Pretoria. He bought meat from me. He's got a medical problem. He needs a doctor. So me and Miller meet. And we have a discussion over a period of time, client-doctor-patient relationship, strictly business in the beginning, professional, you got your problem, how to help you. And then as we got to know each other, he started opening up. And one day he tells me this incredible story. He said, I was in New York, in the streets of New York. I was walking around aimlessly, sad, depressed, broken, not knowing what to do. Very much like the emotions of a lot of people in South Africa right now. And he said, whilst I was walking down the streets of New York, I saw a man in the corner of one of the streets. I don't know who this man is. I looked at him, and my soul told me to follow that man. So he followed the man, and the man walked into St. John the Divine, a huge church in New York, which I've seen and visited. And when he went in, Mother realized that the man was a Muslim, a master of Sufism. He walked into the church, and then he said, I saw something more amazing. This Muslim Sufi man made a zikr. A zikr is a celebration of God's name in Arabic. In English translated, it means one and only, kind, compassionate, merciful, cherisher, nourisher, sustainer, eternal, absolute, all those kind of things. So he said he did the zikr in the church. He said the next amazing thing was the Jewish rabbi, the Christian priest, the Hindu pandit, those who don't believe, and everybody else who was in the church also joined the zikr. It spoke of the unity of religion and the unity of mankind. There's only one way to build this country. It's unity of religion, of color, of class, of togetherness. People say that religion is the cause of conflict. The church elders proved that religion is not the cause of conflict. It's people who move away from religion that cause conflict. You see, when the lawyers steal money from the road accident fund, do we say the legal profession must be written off? When doctors do malpractice, do we say write the medical profession off? When governments are corrupt, do we say kill the system of state and government? When corporates do illegal business and unethical business, do we say stop corporate companies from growing? No. It's individual people who mess up, not the system itself. So we need to understand harmony and understand we don't judge an entire community or an entire nation or an entire grouping. We need to be very circumspect about what we do, and it's very critical for this country. Merlin and I start speaking more. And he tells me the teacher that he met in 1985 passed on. I need to see the new one. So I said, and he says, you need to go to Turkey. So I said, why Turkey? He said, the teacher is from there, he's from Turkey. So I said, Mullah, it's 1986, I still haven't seen Cape Town. When am I going to see Turkey? He said something very critical, very important, again, apply to your life. He said, what God wills happens. There's a time and a place. The time and the place was August 91. It's a long story, but I got to Turkey. What Mullah saw in a church in America, I saw in a Muslim Sufi holy place in Istanbul in Turkey. Jews, Christians, Hindus, Muslims, Americans, Russians, Australians, New Zealand, Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, parts of Africa, all in a Muslim holy place. This was post-Gulf War. Gulf War had polarized the world. Samuel Huntington spoke of a clash of civilizations. The perception was Christians and Jews on one side and Muslims on the other side. And coming from an apartheid past Denab. And when you go there, you can't understand that people are not fighting. People are respecting each other. There's only love and understanding between these different countries and different religions. It's something I couldn't understand. The spiritual teacher was there, the new one. I suddenly saw him. He makes eye contact with me, and I feel something in my soul. And then I understood that this was totally spiritual, because he didn't ask me, where did you come from? How was your flight? Where are you staying? Did you eat something? That's what a host would normally ask the guest. His first question to me is, what do you see? He understood that what I saw was affecting me. He said, what do you see? I said, I see people from different countries, different religions in a Muslim holy place. And we fought with these people all over the world. He said, what you see is right. And then he explains. He says, mankind is one single nation. The God of all mankind is one. We just call him by different names. Any imam, Sufi, sheikh, pandit, priest or rabbi who preaches violence, extremism, terrorism, discord, conflict, or confrontation is not a man of God. Don't follow him. Anyone who teaches love, kindness, compassion, and mercy is the man of God. Follow him. At that very instant, I then understood what the elders were saying in St. John in the Divine. That you can't judge a country, a people, a civilization, a race, or a religion on the behavior of 1 or 2 people. And you don't judge anybody. You relate to human beings as human beings. You don't judge anybody. The only person you judge is yourself. And you'll be so busy doing that, you won't have time to judge anybody else. And then I go back, and the yearning comes to see this place of love again. The ideal world. No friction, no conflict, harmony between people. So 6 August 1992, I'll end up in Turkey again. It's a Thursday night, 10 p.m., the zikr takes place again. And then the spiritual teacher suddenly just sits up, looks me direct in the eye, and looks heavenly. The people who are from the spiritual order, who've been there for years and years and years long before me, said what happened that night has never, ever happened in that order before. The teacher makes eye contact with me, and in fluent Turkish. And I don't speak a word of Turkish. But I understood every single word that he said. He said, my son, I'm not asking you, I'm instructing you to form an organization. The name in Arabic will be Waqful Waqifin. Translated, it means gift of the givers. You will serve all people, of all races, all religions, all colors, all classes and all cultures, of any geographical location and of any political affiliation. But you will serve them unconditionally. You will expect nothing in return, not even a thank you. This is an instruction for you for the rest of your life. Serve people with love, kindness, compassion, and mercy. And remember, the dignity of man is foremost. If somebody is down in the ground, don't push them down further. Hold them, elevate them, wipe the tear of a grieving child, caress the head of an orphan, say words of good counsel to a widow. These things are free. They don't cost anything. Clothe the naked, feed the hungry, provide water to the thirsty. And in everything that you do, be the best at what you do. Not because of ego. Ego is terrorism. Ego is dictatorship. Ego is avarice. Ego is destructive. Ego is greed. Not because of ego, but because you're dealing with human life, human emotion, human suffering, and human dignity. And then he goes on to say another spiritual message. He said, my son, remember that whatever you do is done through you and not by you. At some point I asked him, how come when you speak Turkish, I understand, and other people speak Turkish, I don't understand? He said, my son, when the hearts connect and the souls connect, the words become understandable. I asked him, what actually am I supposed to do? I'm a doctor in private practice. I have 3 surgeries in a place called Pietermaritzburg in South Africa. What exactly do you want me to do? He told me one line. You will know. For 30 years, I do know. How to do, what to touch, what not to touch, what to stay far from, what to go to. I know exactly what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. The only thing I don't know is how I know it. But I know exactly what to do. As I walked out of that place, that same night, not even like 6 months later, the same night, it came to me by inspiration, respond to the civil war in Bosnia. The same month, I took in 32 containers of aid into a war zone. 3 months later, in November 1992, I took in 8 containers of winter items into Bosnia again. The chill factor in Eastern Europe can reach minus 21 degrees. The following year, what a company in Pretoria, Fund of Engineering, effort, Johan and Gert, we got together and we designed the world's first containerized mobile hospital. A product of African technology, African engineering, made in Africa, a world first, and taken to Europe. CNN filmed the hospital and said, the South African containerized mobile hospital is equal to any of the best hospitals in Europe. What am I telling you? South Africans have great skill. South Africans have Ubuntu. South Africans work together. We can do things in Europe. Why can't we do things in our own country? Why can't we fix things there? We need to have self-belief. We need to look into ourselves and say, take out that inertia and have self-belief. In 2010, we made world history again. I'm fast-forwarding a little bit in international projects. 20th January 2010, 8 days after the earthquake in Haiti, which in 40 seconds wiped out 250,000 people. We go to the rubble 8 days after the earthquake in the collapsed Catholic Church. My teams go in, Mani Gous and Ahmed Bam, and the rest of the team. 64-year-old Azizi, no food, no oxygen, no water, fractured hip, completely enclosed in rubble. They pull her out alive. 8 days after the earthquake. Her first words to them is, I love God Almighty. Everything is based on faith. We instill faith and hope in somebody several thousand kilometers away. The second thing she said is, I love you. A mixed South African team took her in and took her out from that rubble. Then came the orthopedic team, with Johnny De Beer and Hannes Jube. And as they went in, and the people from other northern countries said, we can't do this. Everything is broken. Theaters can't work. We can't do this, that, the other. Johnny and Hannes and the team said, die boer maak 'n plan. And everybody started doing amazing work. To the credit of the northern countries, they said, if you want healing, and you want help, and you want recovery, then go to the dream team. And the dream team is from South Africa. Whose schools did they study in? Whose universities did they study in? Which hospitals did they go to? Foreign? International? Europe? America? No. They studied in this country. They learned in this country. They practiced in this country. And they took their skills across. The final point on international disasters. You see, when there's a disaster, one group will take tents, blankets, food, medicine, bottled water, sanitary pads, diapers. Another team will take primary health care. Another team will take trauma medicine, orthopedic surgeon, general surgeon, vascular surgeon, neurosurgeon, theater nurse, ICU nurse. Another group will take trauma counselors. Another team will take post-op rehab specialists. Some people will take search and rescue teams. Some people will take rescue dogs. Some people will bring medical equipment. Some people will bring search and rescue equipment. Some will build clinics, some will build hospitals, some will rebuild houses, some will support agriculture. And if there's hostage situation, if somebody is taken captive, somebody will come with hostage negotiators. We're the only team in the world that do all of the above. We can fly a plane into an airport and put up an ICU and a runway on the runway of the airport. In Somalia, in 3 hours, we set up an entire hospital with ICU, oxygen, theater, gynae, pediatrics, casualty, dietetics, physiotherapy, everything within 3 hours. That's the skill of South Africans. And we need to understand this because that same skill is what's required to fix this country. This country has two major problems: lack of skills and lack of experience. We have to retrain people in this country to upgrade the skills and bring the experience back. That's what we need to make a major change in this country. So let's forward a little bit. 2016, November, I decided to kill all international marketing. No more marketing about international projects because the media was focusing too much on that and not knowing what we're doing locally. And the first major test of a local project came the Nigeria fires of June 2017. It was the first time the country understood what we really did. It was an important lesson there which you can apply now in terms of rebuilding the country. So we sent 2 ladies to supervise the entire project. ShopRite Checkers comes and says, take the car park. You can use this as your warehouse. So I said, where your shoppers are going to park? They said, don't worry about the shoppers. Just take the car park. It's about adapting mentality. It's about responding to the challenges. It's about being accessible and available for the sake of the people. We need to be available and accessible and supportive for the sake of the communities in the country. So the 2 ladies go. But a super link can't go into a car park. It's too big and it's too heavy. So what happens then? So the guy from across the road brings a forklift. And the Superlinks park outside, they take the whole street up. But you still need to go inside. And all the people from Niza start coming with hundreds of bakkies. Load into my bakkie. Up the ramp, offload, make the parcel in the ramp, back down. We delivered 20,000 food parcels, sanitary pads, hygiene packs, and blankets. And then we sent in our own firefighters. And we supported 1,200 firefighters twice a day with nutrition, with water, with energy, with liquids, with meals. We sent in advanced life support paramedics, an advanced life support ambulance. We sent in our own specialist medical team who delivered babies, saw patients, and took them out to the different hospitals away from Niza to Georgia and other areas. And whilst doing that, people came and said, you know, the cat and the dogs are very hungry. There's no food for the animals. And South Africans are very compassionate people. So we brought in 30 tons of cat food and dog food, and the cats and dogs had a party. And then they said, but you know why the fire was so big? Because there's a drought here. And that's when our relationship with the farmers started in South Africa. They said the drought is too big. What about the sheep, the cattle, the pigs, the horses, the animals in the wild and the elephant in the park? And we responded to all those categories of people, of animals, and supported them with food. Whilst we were busy in Niza, we got calls from Sutherland. It was our first outreach into Sutherland. And from all parts of too many areas of Northern Cape, parts of Southern Cape, and went into parts of Eastern Cape, where the calls came and said, in Sutherland, the merino sheep is dying. From 440,000, the count is dropping. People are getting sad, they're losing their livelihoods, they can't borrow any more money, there's no support from the cooperatives, everything is collapsing. So what do you need? Afrikaner people spoke to us, I know nothing about farming and agriculture. And they said you need certain kinds of fodder. We put in millions upon millions of rands of fodder into all those areas. The transport cost was a killer. But to the credit of the farmers from all over South Africa, they gave the stuff for free. Except the lucerne and some other stuff which is expensive, we paid for that. But other stuff came free from farmers. It came by train, it came by truck, it came in every way. The tragedy was this, that when we got there, the farmers said, we don't have money to put diesel in the bakkie to go and fetch the fodder from a distance. So we had to take the trucks right inside to make sure that people could come. And we saw the difference. Black, white, and colored all stood together. Those who had no bakkies, each other helped each other. They stood as one united group, standing together, helping together, suffering together, and being in pain together. And that's how we build a country. 2020, 2018, June 2018. After supplying the fodder, the farmers came back and said, there's no point now. So we said, why? They said, all the boreholes are dry. There's no more water. Fodder without water can't work. We sent in our team and we drilled 238 boreholes for the farmers at our cost. To save the farmers, to save the sheep, to save jobs, and to bring back, there was a lot of sadness. Many sad stories. Some people shot themselves. Kids had to come out of school. Kids had to come out from university. And you know, it was the ultimate point of difficulty when a farmer calls and says, when you bring food parcels for the farm laborers, can you please bring a food parcel for me and my family? We haven't eaten. That shows they respect you. They know you keep their secret quiet. They have trust in you. It was painful. It was sad. And we took the food parcels across. For the first time in January this year, the sheep count started rising because we have a group called two people, Sybil and Jan Versace, who bought this machine that makes pellets. So you put in molasses, you put maize, you put in lucerne, and you enrich it with even bad fodder. So they put that thing in, and we paid towards the machine. And they were distributing this pellets. Farmers were paying for it, but at a reduced price. A month ago, they phoned me, and they were crying. They said, we can't carry the cost anymore. We have to increase the price. The fuel price, the cost of maize, transport costs, wheat price, everything has gone up. We can't carry it at the same price. But if we raise it by even 5 rand on a bag, 65% of farmers, black, white, and colored, are going to have a serious problem in that area. I said, don't increase the price. We will subsidize the difference. And I'm putting hundreds of thousands of rands to subsidize the difference so the pellets are still at the same cost. And now the sheep count is rising. The food, the people are starting to employ more jobs. Agriculture is a big asset to the country, big contributor to the economy. And a change is coming, and of course, there's building of relationships with each people. In 2019, the drought came in Makanda. We responded to that. And at the same time, there were floods in KZN and Cyclone Idai. Again, we showed our capability. For the first time in our history, we were in 4 countries at the same time: Mozambique, Malawi, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. In Mozambique, we were the only team in the world. No government had it. We had 5 helicopters. Other guys had 1 helicopter. We had search and rescue teams, diving teams, off-road rescue, two-way communication systems, boats, people on the ground, Estequina, on top in Beira, communication systems, pilots, everything. We're the only guys in the world that had that kind of capability. We sent in dogs and specialist people into Zimbabwe to help find bodies. We were flying with the military in Malawi to assist, help people in different areas. And we're doing flood relief in South Africa. Again, what does it show? South Africans have the skill. We got the know-how. We can make difference. 2020 was the turning point. If we haven't learned from COVID, we'll never learn from anything. COVID broke the idea about money is king. Materialism is king. We have more wealth, we are better off than anybody else. It proved to you, you can know the president, the Minister of Health, the CEOs of all the medical hospitals in South Africa, the private ones. You can be a billionaire, and you'll be standing in the same line as the guy from Transkei. If that ICU is full, if there's no oxygen machine, there's no bed, your billionaire is not going to get you that bed. You are nothing, meaningless. God leveled everybody to the same level. Your machines couldn't, your money couldn't buy you a bed because medical ethics will not allow us to take out a percentage of the bed that's for no money. But because you got money, we're going to give it to you. It's not going to happen. It had to bring consciousness into the people. That COVID itself, in a way, was a blessing. Corporate South Africa changed their thinking. Corporate South Africa put compassion in commercialization. Corporate South Africa started caring about the people. Sorry, I'm a very blunt guy. They started caring about the people. Because normally, when they speak to me, I tell them, don't waste my time. You can send me a CSI committee people who don't know what they're talking about. And your only interest is, do you have 90% BE points? Do we get a tax certificate? Will we get a write-up somewhere or an announcement in the radio? That's all you guys are interested in. Are you really interested in the country and the people? But in 2020, something really great happened. CEOs of companies started calling and said, forget the BE points. Forget the tax certificates. Forget about anything else. Tell us how can we save lives and how can we save our country. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have that kind of spirit, that type of spirituality, we can fix the country. It's not impossible. And we need to understand the suffering of people. In April 2020, in a place called Nonzamo in Strand, we were giving out food parcels to old people and they were hungry. But everything takes so long because of social distancing. The lines are much longer than normal. And people with walking sticks and all takes much longer. At 8 o'clock, the SAPS comes and says, curfew, time is up. And I tell them, jump in the lake, lock me up, do what you want. I am not stopping. I can't leave people hungry. To the credit of the SAPS, and we need to understand this. You see, everybody is not a bad cop. Everybody's not a bad guy. That's why I said, don't be judgmental. The cop said, you're right. He phoned for reinforcements. And he said, more cops must come. I want you here guys now. And he said, every old lady who takes a food parcel, put in the van and take it to the house. We don't hear stories like that. It's part of spirituality. We don't run people down. We encourage the good within people. People may have bad habits. It doesn't make them bad people. We need to change the way we respond and react to people. So the police comes. And the last lady at 12:30 in the morning, she says, thank you. I'm going home now. I'm going to wake my grandchildren up. We need to understand the suffering of people. And we said, what are you going to do such a crazy thing for? She said, my grandchildren, I left home this morning. They will look at me with hope in their eyes that I'll bring back something because they haven't eaten for 3 days. In June 2020, we delivered food parcels in Paddy, in Eastern Cape, and a lady comes and takes a food parcel, and she says, thank you. Please talk to my children. They will tell you the taste of every single plant in this area. They've been eating plants for 3 months to survive. They've been eating lizards They've been eating cats and they've been eating tortoises because they're starving. Our trucks were on the dump field where the dump sites are. And our staff were watching when the dump trucks came. Little children were running to the dump. A child takes a jam tin and puts it in his mouth. Serrated edge can get cut and infection. Another child takes a finger, rubs it in a peanut butter bottle and tries to eat it. And then a small child comes to the soup kitchen and shaking into July, freezing winter, no shoes, torn shirt, no jersey, no hat, walks in and says, I won't eat too much. Can you give me food for my mother, my father, my brother, and my sister? They haven't eaten at all for the last 5 days, but I won't eat. Adults need to learn from the children. This child knew spirituality, it knew sacrifice, it knew altruism, it knew respect, it knew the value of dignity. The child was teaching us. And we said, eat as much as you want and take as much as you want. This is the suffering we got to fix in this country. But people got afraid. People got scared. Everything was relegated to the government. When corruption came, when things were not working out, people sat back and got afraid. This country does not belong to the government. It belongs to the people of South Africa. To me, to you, and 65 million people. So what are you sitting back for? Take ownership of the country and fix it. 7 million people, Texas can't look after 65 million people. It's impossible. So if the Australians, the Canadians, the Germans, the Americans run this country, they're going to have the same problem. Because 7 million people, Texas can't look after 65 million people. We need to hold hands and fix what we can together. What I spoke about in the beginning. Because everybody in government is not corrupt. Everybody in government is not a bad guy. There's lots of good people in government, lots of good civil servants, and who work, who want to do the right things. They don't have skill, they don't have experience. And you get guys blocking them. And those are the guys I call the traitors and the anti-patriots. We've got to hold the hands of the good one and take the bad one and kick him in his teeth. That's what we need to do. That's the way forward to save this country. And one final comment, and we can have questions if somebody wants after that. When the civil unrest came, people got intense fear in this country. You need to look at things differently. We're on the ground, we know what's going on. We're in all those unrest areas. This is not an insurrection. An insurrection is when you attack key security points, airport, harbor, electricity, water, union buildings, defense force, police services, government buildings. An insurrection is not when hundreds of thousands of people go to a mall to take stuff for free. What kind of insurrection is this? Not one of them was armed. Nobody threw stones. Nobody was rioting. 2-year-old child, 12-year-old guy, old lady on a stick. What kind of danger are these people? They were used as fodder by people who are the anti-patriots and traitors who tried to create an impression they got a lot of power. It backfired because the people of South Africa stood up and said, we will not allow you. And that thing died in 3 days. And even the taxi people got up. The taxis got up and said, we will stop this, we will not allow this. Those poor people were used as fodder. They didn't burn any shops. People came from behind them to burn shops. And the biggest theft took place after hours. Poor people don't have forklifts. They don't have Mercedes, BMWs, buckies, and trucks. At night, 2,000 of pallets from one warehouse, another 500 pallets from another warehouse. All those things were stolen at night. This was not insurrection. This was pure thieving and theft and greed and avarice. God made the floods of 2022. Where did the floods go? The same areas where the looting took place. And what happened? Those who looted were helped by those who looted, who got looted. The people who were affected helped those people who took their stuff. And South Africans stood together as one nation. People came forward. Yeah, you can have my house. Here's my hall. Here's the school. Here's food. Here's a pot. Here's blankets. Share with each other. People ran across. They didn't wait for government. They didn't wait for disaster. They couldn't wait for anybody. They went all together and started helping each other. A man walks past Newlands West, walks past the house and sees an old lady floating in the house, opens the door and rescues the old lady and takes her out. In Sandfield in Tongaat, the water rises 8 meters in 45 minutes. And the guy makes a call. And all the ordinary people come with boats to save all the people. South Africans stood, black, white, Indian, colored, all stood together. And to me, the most important thing that happened was I didn't get a single call on the 11th of April from any person saying, I need a boat, I need a helicopter, I need a diver, I need this, I need that. Not one call like that. The only call I got, or calls I got, was from corporate South Africa, up till midnight and beyond. And the only question was, what do you need? How can we help? I said, are you guys feeling well? They said, what do you mean? I said, you guys are staying awake after hours to give away money and not to make money? They said, we feel for our people. When we see this kind of changes, ladies and gentlemen, when we see that kind of commitment, when people want to work together, and one beautiful incident, the Lamasi Bridge broke. And people said, we're going to fix this ourselves. We're not waiting for government. It's our country. We're going to fix it ourselves. And so some company gave cement, an engineer drew the plan, an architect did his thing, and the business people gave them money. And the people from Lindalani and Polani informal settlement came forward and said, our houses got washed away. Our furniture got washed away. Our clothes got washed away. Our children got washed away. We lost our jobs. We don't have anything. But we are South African. We are part of this community. We are part of this nation. Whatever money we have in our pockets, we're going to take it out and contribute to this bridge because we are one South Africa, one nation. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a great country. Take ownership for it. We can fix everything. In lots of things we can fix. We can fix hospitals, we can fix schools, we can fix what situation. We need to transfer skills, we need to bring experience, and of course we need to put pressure on government to change the corruption. The SIU is doing a great job. The Hawks are doing a great job. Within the police services, they are doing a great job. In the health department and others, there's a huge transformation. People are fixing a lot of things in this country. And the final point is, what is the international perception about us? I was invited by the chief economist of Standard Bank to address American and European investors. When I finished off with them, they said, we will invest in South Africa. The head of Daimler, Michael Dietz, called me and spoke for me 2.5 hours. When I finished with him, he said, we're increasing our investment in South Africa. And he said, we're going to take all these youth and give them apprentice inside our factories and give them skills. Every company in South Africa should take 1 or 2 youth, give them skills. It's not about earning. It's about self-worth, self-esteem, empowerment, dignity, and knowing that they can do something that will kill the youth time bomb in this country. How much will it cost? 2,000-3,000 men? Not expensive. Every company in South Africa should do something like this. The Swedish ambassador called me and invited all the Swedish companies to his house. And I spoke to them. When I finished, they're going to increase investment in South Africa. The Australians said the same thing. The Canadians said the same thing. We need to invest in our own country. This is the safest country on earth. That civil unrest proved how safe this country is. We stopped it in 3 days, and 8 provinces didn't participate. You can't take over a country with 1 province only. And nobody's interested in fighting. All people want that one word I spoke about, dignity. When your child falls down a toilet pit and drowns in feces, will you forget it for the rest of your life? When your child comes to hospital with no food, do you know as I'm talking to you right now, if poverty and hunger will cause conflict, then Eastern Cape should be burning long time ago. As I'm speaking to you now, children are dying every single day of malnutrition in the Eastern Cape. Why are they dying? Because for the parents, it's quite normal to be hungry, not to eat food for 4 or 5 days. So they think it's quite normal for the child not to eat food. So when the child comes to the clinic, but if the child's not in that out, it dies. It came too late. And we got involved in the health department and the dietitians and said, let's educate the community and give food. We use what is called easy peanut paste. You open the packet, you eat it, made by a Norwegian company. By God's grace, they saw what we do on our social media pages. They called us, they sent us 15 containers of easy peanut paste valued at 25 million rand. Ladies and gentlemen, if the Norwegians can do it, we can do it. Advanced skills, support each other, work together. We have to hold hands of government, hold hands with each other, forget the stereotypes, and be ready to share. And the final thing which all of us religions know, anyone who does an atom's weight of good shall see it. You don't need big organizations. Help your family, your friend, your staff, your neighbor, somebody down the road, the next street, the next village, somebody in your company. We all have to make 1% difference. We make 1% difference, we'll fix this country. We've already drilled 45 boreholes in PE. We're sending water trucks all over Amatola district. We're building hospitals, we're repairing hospitals, we're repairing schools, we're still providing fodder, we're upgrading bees, we're upgrading agriculture. We're doing a lot of different things. We're having special education needs teachers in schools to help kids with learning disorders. All this is possible because of South African support. There's a willingness to do things together, to work together, to fix the country. The country is yours. Take ownership of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Suleiman. What an inspiration. What an inspiration for us to take back home and to start doing something, even if it's just one thing. Just start doing something. And I think then we can turn this country around, as you said. We need to take ownership of our own destiny, and we want to make a difference. I would ask Nicole just to hand over something to you. Thank you very much again for your presentation. I would then ask Dr. Kathy Hurley, who's the chairman of the SETCOM at Agri SA, and the rest of the panelists, Grants Jacobs from Hello Choice, Mr. Lennox Plaatjies from Pulse, Deirdre Carter from Limpopo, as well as Andrea Kamfer, just to join us in front here for the next panel discussion.
Every farmer wants to contribute, and everyone wants to get the product to the right place, and that's always been a barrier which has been successfully breached now with a very structured, well-developed, thought-out system.
One Farm Share makes it possible for farmers like you to donate your excess produce to registered charities and help feed millions of South Africans.
Produce that would normally go to waste, the cost involved to get that fruit to less fortunate people is just too high for the farmer to get an income or make a margin out of it. And One Farm came and they just provided the right processes and the right systems for farmers to get the fruit to where it's needed.
With One Farm Share, you don't have to worry about transport, distribution, or paperwork. We have a hands-on team that'll make sure that you can focus on your farm while still knowing that that food is going to millions of South Africans right across the country.
Standard Bank's been in agriculture for the last 160 odd years. We'd like to build out on those relationships in agriculture, at the same time applying technology in doing so. One Farm Share is one of the ways that we can find solutions to do both those things.
Here's how One Farm Share makes that possible. Registered charities list their food requirements with our distribution partners like Food Forward SA and SA Harvest. Through our partnership with Hello Choice, we consolidate these requirements and source produce from farmers. This produce is collected and distributed by our partners to the beneficiaries. It's a system that works, and since 2020, thousands of tons of produce have been delivered through One Farm Share, creating meals for millions of South Africans.
Whether you have excess produce, sub-spec produce, or non-mainland crops, One Farm Share provides an effortless way for you to move this food from your farm to a grateful person's plate.
And when you donate, we issue you with a Section 18A certificate that helps lower your taxable income.
The One Farm Share team has been very professional. The structures is in place. We could easily obtain the packaging. The transport was easily arranged, and it was a seamless solution. It wasn't an administrative burden.
One Farm Share is a perfect example of innovative thinking that benefits both society and the economy.
You can get involved today, and we are here to assist you in any way we can. Learn more at onefarmshare.co.za.
All right. So, hello everybody. Welcome to our last session of our Congress, besides the AGM. And I don't think Dr. Suleiman could have done the most wonderful job in terms of introducing our session for today. You know, when he spoke about the dramas of KZN, my goodness, have we had dramas and have we had disasters? So we certainly will focus on what the work is that the panel is doing in terms of uplifting and working with rural communities. And that's essentially the task that we have today as a group, to share where we're taking action, what kind of action we're taking, and hopefully share some of the lessons that we've learned along the way. So I'd like to welcome Sandy Lamarck, the CEO of Konalu. She'll provide us with a provincial perspective. Then Lennox Plaatjes, an old friend, an old colleague, coming in again as the Pulse liaison in the country at this stage. Yes. And also, obviously, he brings with us, if you look at the CVs in your big, thick books that you were given in your bag, if you look at his CV, he brings a wealth of experience to the panel. And then Andrea Kampfer, welcome Andrea, disaster risk manager at Agri SA. I hate to say it, but since she joined Agri SA, we've had disaster after disaster. So she certainly has been able to hone her skills. And then Grant Jacobs, welcome from Hello Choice. And Grant's going to share some of the wonderful work that they do in partnership with Standard Bank, but also the good work that Hello Choice is doing in terms of bringing emerging farmers' crops to the market in an interesting way. So Sandy, I think we'll start with you with your presentation. We'll do quick presentations. Andrea won't do one. And then I've got a couple of questions to test the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. So, yeah, what an amazing start to our session. And as Dr. Suleiman was speaking, this is exactly what we faced in KZN last year. These were the scenes that we had to work through.
Sure.
This is what we were faced with. And so Konalu had to ask itself the question, how do we strengthen rural safety and security, build communities and grow local through job creation, mindset change, entrepreneurship, mentoring and clustering? Because we saw that was actually the only solution that we could bring to the table. We know, need to go back there. The challenge, the President spoke about this last year, 74% of people under the age of 35 are unemployed. 54% of those over 35 are unemployed. We need 8 million jobs. COVID-19, the KZN July riots, the floods that Dr. Suleiman spoke about, the foot and mouth disease. The challenges have just kept coming our way in KZN. So we said, well, how do we influence that? And we know that to address the need, we would have to employ 22,220 people every day for a year to have 8 million people employed. Or otherwise, we have to start up 2,220 small, medium, micro enterprises every day, and those people employ people. So we went through a very careful methodology, and we said we have to have a mindset change. And this is not only with the people that we were working with, but it was us as communities, and that's really what it was about. It's community change, community entrepreneurship, mentoring, and aggregation. How do we put together a platform to identify, digitize, upskill, and aggregate women and youth? Those were our target persons, particularly using entrepreneurship, business creation. We looked at an intensive business admin training component, and then saying, how do we upskill? How do we take and link those agri-entrepreneurs with commodities, supply chains, enterprise markets? So really taking a holistic view. Obviously, agriculture, we know, is a major contributor to the change that we can bring. And again, hearing Dr. Suleiman, what can we do? We as agriculture, we can do a lot. And so, as I said, by recognizing that in agriculture, we can grow it, we can develop it, we can create jobs, and using the broader value chain to do so. So just to talk a little bit about some of the activities that came out and how we started to say we need to move away from the grant dependency. We all know about the grant dependency. We were able to seek some sector funding, private sector funding, and what we did is our first task was to identify some of the worst affected areas from the riots that took place. And when many of you don't know, but some of our towns were completely decimated. There was nothing left. You couldn't draw money. You couldn't buy food. So we identified some of those towns. We took 945 women and youth, and we trained them within 6 months. And what's so amazing is that 75% of those people that we've worked with have already seen an increase in personal income. That is amazing. 78% down to 64% reliance on grants, making a difference. Identifying key projects from those communities, and then employment. Employment starting to increase as people started to realize that they could make a change. I'm not going to go through the stepped approach, but perhaps just to focus on the box that says impact. 945 changed mindsets, with the potential of each of those to employ 5 people. The value of those jobs alone is 236 million to the economy. Critical community-led projects began, not in isolation, but in a collective community-based approach. And as Dr. Suleiman said, restoring dignity and removing the state of dependency that we see that takes place so much in our deep rural areas. And with that, it's important not only to go in and be part of projects and then to walk away, but to keep a sustainable footprint, to work together. And so what we've done is we've strengthened our approach, and we've gone and we've put a land desk in place to say, how do we talk about land solutions? What do we do? How do we partner our farmers with our new entrepreneurs? How do we take safety and security issues, stock theft? Crime doesn't stop at boundaries. Crime cuts across geographic, color, every boundary. So how do we start to make a change? How do we inform what we're dealing with? How do we influence farm attacks, farm murders? So we've put specific resources to work within our communities, public relations and image buildings. We know that many farmers have a bad image, and so we've had to say, how do we look at that? What is that community-based approach? How do we build confidence within each other? Our development desk walks with the programs that we're doing. And our development desk has also worked with just over 1,000 people over the last few months. And then taking key projects. And the one that I've sort of spoken a little bit more about in depth was our WIRE, our Women, Youth and Rural Entrepreneurship, which was born out of the riots. And where we've taken 945 women and youth and worked with those. 104 community projects have now come out of that. We've managed to secure some private sector funding where we're going to go and start taking those small SMMEs and giving them an opportunity, and they're going to create jobs. It's talking again about how do we strengthen our rural safety and security. Our communal livestock project, again, not in isolation, working together with our commodities, working together with our communities. Our cotton project, our Future Farmers project, where over the last 6 years we've taken 1,000 unemployed graduates, placed them on farms, what this previous session was talking about, giving them practical hands-on training, understand what are the responsibilities that come with being a part of the agricultural sector, taking those young people, when they finish their training, 75% of them have been taken up in senior management positions with skills that can add value. So just to conclude, we go back to the question we asked ourselves, how do we strengthen our rural safety and security, build our communities, and grow local through job creation, mindset change, entrepreneurship, mentoring, and clustering? Thanks, Kathy.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Sandy. That was really interesting. We'll pick your brain a little bit later. So Lennox, you can maybe change step and give us a little bit of insights into the work that you've been doing in Pulse. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. I also want to appreciate the opportunity to be at this platform and being invited. It's an awesome privilege. And thanks also for the reconnection and seeing you again. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. The PALS initiative that was formed in 2015 in the Witzenberg area of Ceres has now obviously grown to other regions of the country. And my presentation this morning will just briefly be to give you a brief overview, and perhaps I will also deal with some of the questions that might emerge afterwards. We were cautioned as to not having our presentations too long, Kathy, so I hope I'll be keeping it very short. PALS stands for Partners in Agri-Land Solutions. And as I said, this is an initiative that was started by commercial farmers, black and white, in Ceres. And the idea was, if you look at the three characteristics of the PALS initiative, was one, to say it's a private sector driven initiative, it's farmers, and working in close cooperation with the surrounding farming communities. It started in Ceres, as I said earlier. The characteristics also include having learned from past land reform models that government implemented since 1994. Valuable lessons have been learned, and in learning those lessons, what we need to depart from what actually led to the failure of some of the models that was rolled out by government. Among others, we looked at basing our business enterprises we established on sound business principles, solid legal structures, and a great emphasis on training and mentorship, which I will share a little bit on. And then the idea was our endeavor, looking at the invitation of the National Development Plan, Chapter 6, that speaks of an integrated rural community. PALS took up government on their invitation, said, listen, as private sector, we will make a contribution to land reform. We will set land aside, but our objective will be to establish successful black farmers. And to do that, it will be completely driven by the private sector, black and white farmers and the communities, and the state will have a central role to play of enabling, which we heard a lot about yesterday, in terms of making sure that happens. The third characteristics of the PALS initiative was to set up a unique center in each region, which will serve as a one-stop shop land reform office, whatever you want to call it, that gives a comprehensive assistance to all the various projects that will be rolled out in the specific areas. Now, the theme of this Congress, growing local, is so suited to the theme of PALS since our inception. The idea was growing together. And that has become the slogan of PALS, and that has now been rolled out to SA PALS, the national structure of PALS that is overseeing the region that has also launched. Kathy asked us that it will be important to answer a question, why are you doing this? Why is what you do so important? It started with discussions in 2014, August, before the formal formation of PALS in 2015. Commercial farmers, black and white, coming together to say, we recognize the past. We recognize the atrocities of the past, not everybody having an equal opportunity, in particular in the land space. And we therefore recognize our responsibilities that we can make a contribution. But they also said, having learned from lessons of the past, it will be done differently. And some of the conditions, and I think that became what was agreed upon in the resolution from the farmers when they met, was to say we want to build this PALS initiative, promote inclusive agricultural development, and there must be a drive for economic growth. The idea was not to say, listen, there's a cake. Let's now cut this cake into pieces. The idea was, let's build a bigger cake. Let's make sure that we grow the actual opportunities that are there, and from there, create additional wealth, additional growth, additional job creation, and income and livelihood creation, yes. So the idea was we need to ensure that it's sustainable, working close with the communities to make sure that they also promote social harmony, making sure that communities around the farming areas benefit, and in particular the farming communities themselves, starting with those who are on the land. A unique feature of the PALS framework has been part of the departure from the past land reform models that were unsuccessful. You would see we built it on a PALS framework. It's registered as a trademark, and it had certain elements that we believe having researched, having spoken to commercial farmers in our area, having learned lessons from the past failed models, having consulted the University of Stellenbosch Business Schools and other business leaders in the agricultural sector. What are the main characteristics that we believe that we will require to make a business successful? It must be sustainable. We looked at putting business structures together that protects the rights of both parties playing together. It must be anchored along established commercial lines. We need to have a commercial partner partnering, anchoring, mentoring, and sharing and transferring of skills to the emerging black farmers. We also said it will be compulsory. The mentorship thing will not be negotiated, it will be compulsory. And then we made sure that in what we are doing, there's a twofold approach in terms of development. We want to identify individual black farmers. And why we want to do that? We want to contribute to de-racializing the agricultural sector. We want to be sure that those who show the potential, those who are willing to learn, those who are willing to put skin in the game and contribute to the growth of agriculture, let's help them to emerge as the successful agricultural entrepreneurs and also giving access to the value chain. And then we also said, amongst the others, it must be based on bankable business, and it must be, and also built in the PELS framework is to make sure that as partners come together and you mentor and you partner, at some point there should be an exit strategy. So the PELS framework that you see, the diagram on your right, is basically giving an idea of one of the basic models of a PELS business framework, where you will have a commercial partner and its black partners joining together in a farm co, or it could be a value chain project. And the idea was from inception, private sector funded, private sector initiated, private sector supported. So then you will ask the question, so what was the role of government in all this? We said from the beginning, the private sector will lead, but government will have a responsibility of enabling. And it could not have been better emphasized than I think Mr. Matthews who spoke yesterday, boldly putting it that that's the responsibility. And we hear it again, we're not going to wait for you to do it, but we're going to keep government to task to enable the growth and establishment of the new business entities. The next slide just basically give you our 3 focus areas. The stated goals were there to say, again, black farmers, successful, include the whole community in the process, expand it to other areas. Obviously, there's no one size fits all. You take the framework and we adapt it to what's workable in the various other regions that we are operating in. And then we said the PEL Center is the one-stop shop to help the emerging farmers and this commercial white partner coming together, making sure we facilitate and do the necessary advice and assistance and coordinating all the enablers that's required to make the business successful. So there we said our focus areas, social cohesion and agriculture, enterprise development and inclusivity, which I believe has been a theme that has been quite repeated throughout the 2 days since yesterday. The next slide basically give you an oversight, just an oversight of the role of the PEL Center that was established firstly in Ceres. And we are very happy to announce we've now established a center in Free State, Maluti PELS Free State, in the Rates area, as well as in Mpumalanga in the Nelspruit and Bombela area. And that's the expansion of the initiative. That was the goal from the beginning, yes. So the PEL Center, from the beginning, was 100% funded by commercial farmers. The operations of that center, where you put together these business plans, put together the structures that will farm together, bring together the pairing of commercial farmers and emerging black partners, the negotiations from government in terms of the enablers that we spoke about, being water permits to be expedited, being subdivision of viable land that can form a new farming business. All those were negotiated and facilitated from the PEL Center. The PEL Center, since 2015, September, being initiated by the farmers coming together, has been operated on a budget that was completely funded by commercial farmers of 2.5 million a year. And in the second year, I think we had an approach of commercial banks coming on board, joining PELS as strategic partners, seeing the light in what it is that we are doing. And where it is now today, and I'm proud to announce that we have recently signed an agreement with Nedbank, who came on board and they became a strategic partner to capacitate the rollout of this initiative that started in Ceres to take it now into other regions. And we are very delighted that a commercial bank have seen that in order for us to see the change, we need to lead the enabling and not wait for government to do that. So we are very delighted. Some of the functions you'll see on this slide includes the role of the PEL Center, working in communities, a large focus on training programs. And these training programs, other than what you've heard Agri Sa said this morning, has been to complement, and I think a lot of development, and we should complement agricultural sector. A lot of technical skills has been implanted in farm workers. But what PELS came with is to say, now we need to elevate the skills level to that of business entrepreneurs, to that of business managers, to that of leaders of enterprises. And therefore, we have a strategic partnership with the AECI, who came on board year 2, and they have been funding our business training, leadership, mentorship programs since 2016 up to now, to make sure that we capacitate and build the confidence of those who will now be the new business owners, co-owners, entrepreneurs, and agri-value chain players. We then realized in the commercial space, somebody made an expression yesterday of saying, it's unwise to build an island of wealth in an ocean of poverty. And we realize while commercial agriculture is growing, it's important for us to look at communities around us also. Small-scale community initiatives, we bring them on board. We started now with community projects, and I'm glad to announce one of the projects we're receiving assistance with South African pork producers have come on board to say we will advise, technical advice on what we want to do on community piggery. We are working on some of the failed government land that's in our area, trying to bring suggestions and hoping that at some point they can see the light that the private sector is the best way to do it. Government enables and the private sector rolls out what they are good at. And then a large focus have also been on youth, making sure that we sow into the future of the agricultural sector, making agriculture an attractive destination for young people, in particular young people from previously disadvantaged communities, your colored communities, African communities, in all the various areas where centers are implemented. Yes. Lastly, the last slide is just to show off. We have recently had a strategic session and in Sierras that was well represented by delegations from Mpumalanga, Free State and Witzenberg under the leadership of SAPLs. And what we see going forward, and we believe with the partnership theme that's right through this Congress, it is an idea that is taking heed and it's gaining momentum, and we are delighted to be able to share this platform. I was also informed yesterday that part of the monthly newsletter of Agri SA includes the perspective of PELS. That's our monthly newsletter, and we are really, really grateful to be sharing this, and thank you for the partnership. Thanks, Katie.
Thanks, Enoch. So I guess you've got pulse now, all of you. Thank you for your enthusiasm and the sharing. So what I would like to do then is, Andrea, so, you know, it is an unusual way that you've come into this rural communities and the support for rural communities. So perhaps you can share some of your insights that you've gleaned over these last couple of months, particularly with all the KZN dramas and others in the country, about how that disasters can in fact lead to opportunities and build rural communities.
Thank you, Kathy. I think especially with the theme growing local, the essence is we have to build resilient communities, rural communities, to absorb these impacts. The last 2 years, we experienced a significant amount of disasters, from wildfires to locust outbreaks, flooding, droughts, to name a few, the foot and mouth disease. And it's all integrated and interlinked with, under the umbrella climate change, if you want to say. But it just shows you how resilient our communities needs to be, because we can't reactively always provide relief. When Agri SA embarked on a drought aid campaign, and that was in 2016, we assisted thousands of farmers through our provincial affiliates, commodity organizations. In 2020, when we started with the surplus food aid campaign, a lot of farmers started to donate within their immediate communities food aid to vulnerable households. And then with the looting last year, and at the same time, the Agri SA Disaster Relief Foundation was birthed. So this was just some of the initiatives that organized agriculture embarked on to assist our rural communities at the end of the day. when a farmer is faced with drought conditions, we all know that it implicates or affects the job security, the farm workers. But it also has such a big ripple effect on the local economy of that town, that rural town, the school. So when we enable our farmers and assist our farmers, we will reach a bigger community at the end of the day. The goodwill for farmers strengthens rural communities, as I've said, and the farmers are the heart of our communities. So yeah, I think with organized agriculture, we were able to distribute a lot of aid.
So I think that's spot on, and we do have to say that you certainly were a great assistance to us last year as we were going through all those dreadful times that Sandy showed. And it was that coming together and that support that you get in a time of a crisis that in fact shows you that your community is, in fact, you have different communities that you work with, and one was the broader agricultural community that really assisted. So, you know, we've looked at what Konalu's doing in terms of building entrepreneurs, growing women and youth in agriculture, and then Lennox has spoken about the whole big Pulse movement, and they're obviously assisting at a land reform and a grander scale than Konalu is looking at. At the end of the day, then we say to ourselves, okay, so everyone's growing this and everybody's growing that, and people are going into pigs, and we might have a couple of hectares of spinach. What happens to all of that produce, and how do we then grow that rural economy? Because at the end of the day, and I think Lennox mentioned it, it's about growing that pie. We don't want to make our lives smaller. We don't want to make our lives cheaper. We want to be able to grow the pie, grow the rural economy, make sure, as the guy said in Christo's session earlier, we want to speak about profitability. You can't go into any of these ventures if you're not going to make money at the end of the day. And so that's why we asked Grant to sit on the panel today, because Grant and Hello Choice have looked at some different solutions, slightly different to what we were used to in terms of the marketplace, but also linking that market and being available to the entrepreneurs that are coming through Konalu, and hopefully maybe even some of the producers that come through Lennox's Pulse. So Grant, this is over to you just to share a little bit about Hello Choice, but also the deepening involvement in the rural communities through the Standard Bank partnership. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you.
So I hope I didn't say your whole speech.
No, fantastic, thanks very much. You know, I think going through the sort of conference yesterday, I think the sort of comment that Jaco made, I think was really, really good when he spoke about growing local together. And I think one of the key things is when, in fact, you look at the agricultural sector, it really is a massive ecosystem with lots of players, suppliers, producers, buyers, transporters, agri-processors. And one of the things we've done is the One Farm Share program, which I'll kind of talk about. We, in fact, recently have formed a very strategic partnership with Agri Sa to grow the reach around food rescue, hunger relief, and ultimately commercialization of smallholder farmers. And looking at it is that one of the things about agriculture is that it's continuously evolving. I mean, the kind of first time I sort of came to this is I was probably 10 or 11, and there was I think it was a history book or something, and there in fact was a picture of the wheel, a kind of water wheel out of Egypt. And at kind of that point, I actually didn't know much about farming or etc. But just to understand that innovation is something that has happened critically through agriculture for thousands of years. But I think what's happening now is we're using digital technology much more to really bring around benefits to farmers, consumers, and to the various communities around farms. So talking about Hello Choice specifically, but what I'm going to do is talk about One Farm Share, because One Farm Share is really a spin-off of the Hello Choice online marketplace. So on basically the left-hand side, you'll see a picture of the mobile app, which is in fact the Hello Choice marketplace, which actually makes it possible for buyers and sellers to trade digitally. So really taking those principles of a physical market, and a physical market helps supply and demand meet, but the thing is now doing it through your phone, virtually aggregating it. And in fact, what that does bring, it brings transparency to the agricultural supply chain, creates opportunity to actually bring savings to farmers, buyers, but what it really also brings is massive inclusion, because people who were in fact previously excluded, smaller farmers, smaller buyers, smaller traders, can now in fact participate. And what happened is, and what came out of COVID, and I think COVID was obviously a massive shock, but there were a number of very positive things that actually came out of it. And one of those things is that working together with Standard Bank, we actually had a view and said, how do we assist farmers who at that point were sitting with a lot of excess produce? I mean, you can remember that restaurants closed, and in fact what happened on, in fact, the other side, we had lots of people suffering from tremendous financial strain. Companies are going on short time, and a kind of whole sort of range of sort of elements. And in fact, South Africa faces the sort of critical phase where we have massive agricultural and food surpluses, but in fact, we've got millions and millions of people who don't know where their next meal is actually coming from. So, in fact, what we did, using our marketplace technologies, we actually created One Farm Share as an impact platform where, in fact, we can digitize the excess food, understand where charities actually need them, and in fact formed a number of partnerships to quickly and efficiently distribute excess food to thousands of charities nationally. But it's now become much more than that. So One Farm Share has now become a fully fledged impact platform, and what we focus on there is firstly around reducing food waste. So farmers sometimes have excess produce, they have product that is out of spec, but they don't have an efficient way to manage it. And in fact, that's where the partnership with Agri Sa works really, really nicely. Farmers want to do good, but don't have the mechanism or way to actually do that. So in fact, Hello Choice manages that process and in fact make sure that in fact that food doesn't get into the commercial supply chain. The second component of it is around hunger relief, making sure that in fact that food gets to needy people all across the country. And then the third component is around helping smallholder farmers with commercialization. So, in fact, what we're doing now is in fact using corporate social investment money to procure food from smallholder farmers, helping them with packaging, pricing, aggregation, distribution, so that they can grow ultimately to become commercialized farmers. But none of this is possible without partnerships. So what we've really been doing the last 2 years is forming a whole range of partnerships. So on the kind of left-hand side, you can see some of the farmer development agencies we are actually working with, and they are helping us identify those smallholder farmers, helping them with pricing, packaging, helping them to actually aggregate. And through that process, we're also helping them with banking, financial literacy. You can see that we're working with both government agencies plus private NGOs. The other element around food rescues, we've actually expanded where we're now working with on-farm food rescue. So, for instance, in the last week, we've actually managed to, for instance, rescue more than 60 tons of citrus coming out of Kirkwood, and some citrus coming out of the Ikopa area, and in fact managed to get that effectively distributed into these organizations. We've got food distribution partners, Food Forward SA, SA Harvest, chefs with compassion, and also food and also for Africa. We've expanded into an on-market food rescue program. So at the moment, we're working with 8 market agents on the Tshwane market and on the Durban market, where in fact we are rescuing produce prior to it becoming discarded, paying for the transport, labor, some basic packaging or sort of processing, and then getting that into old age homes, early childhood development centers nationally. So I think really what we're saying is that One Farm Share is in fact really there to actually work with farmers in partnership with the different provincial affiliates to make a major change in terms of reducing food waste, making sure that food gets to registered charities in a controlled, structured way, plus also supporting the commercialization of smallholder farmers.
Thank you, Grant. So that's a very good example of what you'd call social entrepreneurship, because the company still has to make money, yet at the same time it's addressing some serious issues that we face in the country and in our rural communities. Now that I see that most of you picked up your phones and you're obviously not with me in my session anymore, I think what I will best do is ask one last question of everybody, and they can answer it in a short, snappy way so that we can get through to tea and to the AGM. So my question then, and also obviously answering Dr. Suleiman's call about a call to action, it would be, everybody's sitting here and there are probably a lot of people who'd like to get going on their own activities. What would you recommend to our audience, to our delegates, to our farmers? What would you say, and where do you begin if you want to get going tomorrow? So we've been called to action by Dr. Suleiman. We've been told this is our country. It's not owned by anybody else. It's owned by us, the citizens of the country. So what are we as citizens of our country going to do in our rural communities to address the security issues, for example, that Sandy identified, also to address the pressure we feel in terms of land and land reform that Lennox identified, to be able to be available when there are disasters that hit that Andrea has spoken about, and of course then Grant bringing together the opportunities that the market can provide, not only to address our commercial issues, but also social issues. So Sandy, in a nutshell, a few words, we're going to do 2 sentences per person.
So in a nutshell, the best thing to bring farmers together is sadly a disaster. Because all of a sudden everybody says, what can we do? So unfortunately, that's the negative side of it. But I think the positive side is being able to say, how do we work collectively, that collective action? And I mean, we've worked in small communities. You don't have to do huge projects. It's little things. Little things make a difference. Little things grow and continue to grow. So, I think just at local Farmers Association, Landowner Association level, that's really where you start to make the difference. Use the opportunities that are available to you and work together collectively. And really, I think you just have to keep your heads up. I mean, we know that the circumstances within which we operate is extremely difficult, but I think Dr. Suleiman coined that you have to have hope, and hope also requires action.
Spot on. Lennox, your view?
Katie, shortly, mine would be obviously also taking from Dr. Suleiman. We, as South Africans, the agricultural sector is already responding to that call because he testified about it today. So there I would say kudos to the sector already. Big or small, we can do something. I know in terms of inclusivity, in terms of growing together, it's often uncertain how to proceed, a lot of trust issues. My advice would be let's learn from each other. There are various models rolled out in the country where commercial farmers have reached out, and you can hear a lot of those examples. I think we can learn from each other. Our uncertainty should not keep us afraid of taking action. And then the last thing I would say, I want to repeat the comment of yesterday. We need a united voice to keep government to task in terms of enablers. And if that's a resolution that can come from this Congress, I would salute the members of Agri SA for achieving that and measuring themselves before the next Congress, whether they've achieved that. Thank you.
Thank you, Lennox. So that's a very important point. It was raised by somebody who spoke to me last night at the dinner, that we need to be able to make sure the enablers that we require as agriculture are put in place. And that's probably going to be one of the works that that Jaco and the team will look at in terms of how do you hold a government accountable. Andrea, from disaster to disaster?
Thanks. Yeah, I think we've saw with the recent past disasters is bureaucratic red tape, insufficient budgeting from government. The private sector has tremendously stepped up, and through our corporate chamber as well, and the members here continuously donating through the foundation to assist these vulnerable farming communities. And I just want to add on a little bit with Sandy and Lennox, is just the 3 C's of disaster management is collaborate, communicate, and coordinate. So if we can take that today and to practically implement it, we have to think about have contingency plans in place, identify vulnerable areas, always have a budget available, mobilize resources, create partnerships or strategic partnerships that we've done with One Farm Share, to mobilize when there's a disaster, that we can mobilize those resources to address it immediately. Gift of the Givers are just an amazing or a credible organization. We've seen that what they've been doing. So yeah, just be proactive, make a change.
Okay, Grant, last
Fantastic.
words?
Yes, last words. I think for me, the kind of key word is implementation. When you look at the Agri SA structures, the kind of capability, the skills, and from a systems level, is just to coordinate those pieces. There's so much we can do. South Africa is our country, and it's basically for us to get stuck in and help fix it.
That brings, I think, will bring our session to the end. For those of you who know me, I just want to finish with a story. So during those riots last year, when we were absolutely terrified out of our wits, I've never been so scared in my entire life. I bawled for 3 days, and many of you know I am a great baller as well, so I can cry. I was crying through Dr. Suleiman's presentation. So I bawl a lot. That's understandable. So I bawled for 3 days, and then I eventually said, this is enough. This is not going to defeat me. I'm going to get myself together and I'm going to make a difference. So I'm giving you that same challenge. Thank goodness we don't have to get through any riots. You don't have anybody shooting around you. But we do need to say to ourselves, let's stand together, let's stand up, and let's all do something. And let's start with tomorrow. Again, it doesn't have to be in a huge, big project, but it can be with your immediate family, your neighbors, and then obviously we really are calling you to come together, work with our rural communities. Let's stand together and show what agriculture can do. And thanks very much for listening to us.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hurley. Thanks for the insightful way that you led this panel as well. I think we've got a lot of food for thought to take home and to collaborate on and to think about, and how can we make a change and can we make a difference. That brings us to the close of the open session of Congress. We will break for tea now for 30 minutes. We'll be back at 11:45 and then conclude the closed session. It won't be long. I don't think it will be much more than half an hour if we come back. So thank you very much for the attendance of all the outside people. Thanks for your contributions as well. We're lucky, very lucky to have persons like you, stakeholders like you, that can help and assist us in carrying the voice of agriculture and really caring for us and supporting us. Hoe meer van julle gaan uitstap, hoe langer gaan ek praat. So kom ons sit gou en maak net gou klaar. Baie dankie vir julle tyd, baie dankie vir julle moeite vir die buiteouens, en dan die van die geslote sessie asseblief kom terug na tee, dan maak ons gou klaar en ons handel die sake van Agri Suid-Afrika af. Baie dankie.
Everything in life starts small. It's a seed, a single step, or a fleeting thought that, when given time, can develop into a harvest, a sprint, or a legacy. At John Deere, We know what it takes to help you grow. We know what it takes to turn seeds into harvests. We know how to shift ground and move earth. We have bridged the gaps between yesterday and tomorrow with sustainable solutions, innovation, and pioneering technology. We know how to build a continent and a future. We've been doing it for years. And while we do what we do with consistency and integrity, the steps we take together is eventually what will make us leap into the future. We run so life can leap forward.